Sound check presenter's laptop, sound check presenter's laptop. Clerk's laptop, sound check, clerk's laptop, sound check. Presenter's laptop, sound check, presenter's laptop, sound check.
We're live. Thank you. Thank you very much, everyone, and welcome to the Planning Committee of February the 1st. Where did January go? Please indicate, let's see, that we are live. So I'd like to call the meeting to order. Members of the public are advised that our meetings are webcast live by the City of Hamilton and archived on the city's website, and that the presentations and reports considered at this meeting are available on the city's website, and that members of the public can contact the nurse's office, the clerk's office to acquire documents in an alternate format. A reminder that all electronic devices should be switched to non-audible function during the committee meetings, please. Members of the committee are reminded of the 5-minute time limit, which will be adhered to during this meeting. Members can submit another request to speak if they require more time to ask questions or make comments. Members of the public have 5 minutes to address this committee, and we are going to do roll call. And I just see everybody's here. It's wonderful. So we have Councillor Johnson, Councillor Pearson, Councillor Danko, Councillor Ferguson, Councillor Wilson, Councillor Partridge. And our visitor today is Councillor Nan. So, Madam Clerk, are there any changes to the agenda?
Yes, Madam Chair, there are changes. Under communications, we have added 5.2 communications respecting 310 Francis Avenue, which is item 7.3 on today's agenda. The communications are from Sherry Hayes, Michelle Blanchette, and Colleen Sanders. Recommendation be received and referred to the consideration of item 7.3. Under delegation requests, we have added 6.1 Ryan Sneak respecting the heritage permit application for 124 St. Clair Avenue in the Hamilton Municipal Heritage Committee report, item 7.1. Added 6.2 Viv Saunders from the Lakewood Beach Community Council respecting items 7.2 and 7.3. Under public hearings, 9.1 city initiative for 1400 Baseline Road. There's added written submissions from Miguel A. Byrne, Sherry Corning, Nancy Hurst, Linda McMillan, and Shujat Siddiqui. We also have added delegation requests from Viv Saunders and Tammy Feltz. And under notices of motion, we have added 12.1 nuisance party bylaw and 12.2 amendment to the removal of snow and ice bylaw respecting the definition of clearing.
Thank you very much. So it's been moved by Councillor Danko, second by Councillor Partridge to approve the agenda as amended. Are there any questions or discussion? Seeing none, please vote accordingly. I'm a yes. I don't know why it's not voting. Sorry. Thank you. As soon as we find out what the... Are we good to go, Elsie? Thank you. All right, thank you. Now declarations of interest. I'm going to look and see if anybody's waving frantically. Thank you. Councillor Partridge, I believe you just let everybody know you're not going to be here for the whole meeting. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you very much, Madam Chair. And this isn't a declaration of interest, but yes, I will be leaving for other appointments. However, I understand from planning staff that perhaps at the end of this meeting, under other interests, Jason Thorne may be requesting that the committee approve a request to post the secondary plan for Waterdown, the transportation master plan, to post it earlier than I believe it's coming the March 22nd meeting.
Yes,
I'm
that's right.
perfectly Yeah, I'm perfectly fine with that. In fact,
Good.
I supported 100% for the community to have access for over the 1,000 pages that the document does have. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Any conflicts of interest? Seeing none, thank you. Can we have approval of the minutes? Moved by Councillor Wilson, second by Councillor Ferguson. This is for the January 11th, 2022 minutes. Are there any discussion or questions? And if there are none, please vote accordingly. Thank you very much. On to communications. 5.1, I'm sorry, who's the vice chair? Thank you. Councillor Ferguson, can I turn the chair over to you? I just want to speak to 5.1, please.
Certainly, go ahead.
Thank you. This is from Spencer McKay of Urban Core Developments respecting exemption requests for 3033 and 3063 Bimbrook Road. The request is to turn it from a 6-story to an 8-story. If my colleagues will recall that this was a settlement that was reached not less than a year ago. The ink is still drying on the settlement. And they're asking for this to be a minor variance. As you know, in the Planning Act, that you have to wait 2 years before you come in with a committee of adjustment, a variance. And they're asking us to waive that 2-year rule for a minor variance. In my opinion, this is not a minor variance. This needs an official plan amendment and a zoning change. So I would like, through you, Mr. Chair, Acting Chair, to Steve Robichaud or Jason Thorne. Am I correct to assume that this is not a minor variance, that they would in fact need an official plan amendment and a zoning change if they want to change the height of the settlement?
Mr. Robichaud? Steve Robichaud, Director of Planning and Chief Planner. That is correct. The site-specific official plan amendment that was approved that resulted in the minutes of settlement was for a maximum height of 6 stories, and normally an increase in height from 6 stories to 8 stories where there's a site-specific official plan amendment would trigger an official plan amendment as opposed to a minor variance. And then consistently with the site-specific zoning that was approved, it would normally go through a rezoning process in order to meet the tests under the Planning Act. Does it comply with the general intent of the official plan, and does it comply with the general intent of the zoning bylaw? Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I understand we have our outside counsel on here for, as my colleagues would remember, because the staff recommended against having the height even higher at all. The council went against the staff recommendation. We had to hire an outside planner and an outside legal staff, and they are here online if we need to go to them. So I would like to just move this as receiving, please, because for those very reasons, it's not a variance. It's not something that can be done on a minor scale. This is a major scale. So,
okay, I see Councillor Partridge just seconding that motion, Councillor Johnson. So is there any discussion on the motion to receive? Councillor Partridge.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. And I want to thank Councillor Johnson very much for bringing this forward. I won't say it's a slap in the face because, as the councillor said, the ink isn't even dry on the agreements, and in fact, the province hasn't even ruled on the no boundary expansion, which I support and hold 100% to. But I would suggest that we are probably going to see the development community come forward with more of these requests, and I'm just very glad that we're nipping this one in the bud. Thank you very much.
Okay, so I see no more requests to speak. So all in favor of the motion to receive?
thank you. Thank you. Just to let you know, Acting Chair or Vice Chair, that was a 7-0 vote.
Thank you. You can now take the chair back.
Thank you. Appreciate that. So now we're on to 5.2. This is communications respecting 310 Francis Avenue. This is item 7.3. And it's an added item as the changes to the agenda for the 3 correspondents. May I please have a mover and a seconder? I'm going to go to Councillor Pearson and seconded by Councillor Farr, that the communications are received and referred to the consideration of the item 7.3. Are there any discussions? If not, please vote accordingly. Thank you. And now we're on to Delegations. 6.1, Ryan Sneak. This is respecting the heritage permit application for 124 St. Clair Avenue to be heard before items 7.1, and 6.2, Viv Saunders, Lakewood Beach Community Council to be heard before items 7.2 and 7.3. Unless there's any conversation about an individual, then we will vote together. So it has been moved by Councillor Danko, second by Councillor Partridge, that they are approved for today's meeting. Now we're on to delegations. So Ryan, are you on board? I'm sorry if I don't see your name.
Yes, can you hear me?
Oh, there you are. Where are you? Oh, there you are. Thank you, Ryan. Go ahead. You have 5 minutes.
Okay, here, I'll
Starting
just share my screen with you guys.
now. Oh, okay, I'll wait a minute. Just a sec. Don't start yet.
Can everyone see this?
No, sir. I can't see it. Anybody else see it? No, I'm seeing big nose. Sorry. Yes, now you are, Ryan. Way
Yeah,
to
you
go.
can see it? Okay, so I'll just give you a
Yes, you
summary
are.
of what happened with this project. There was tree impact damage to an accessory structure. This happened in October of 2020. This is a good description of the damage.
Excuse me, Ryan, I don't mean to interrupt. Can you just introduce yourself, please? Are you the
Oh,
owner?
sorry.
Are you
Yeah,
a resident?
I'm the authorized agent of the owner. I'm an engineer with EFI Global. We did the original assessment of damage to
Oh,
the
thank you.
accessory structure.
That really
And
helps. Thank you. Go ahead.
yeah, we also applied for the building permit.
Okay.
Okay. So yeah, this is the damage that occurred in October of 2020. And we went and applied for a permit for impact damage repairs. And the building department confirmed heritage permit not required. That was based on our scope of work. The permit was applied for. Repairs to roof, including structural framing, was essentially the permit application. During construction, the contractor noticed that the face brick of this building needed to be removed and replaced. These are not our photos, these are the contractor's photos. And so they went and removed this brick because it was about to fall off. And in doing so, they did not apply for a heritage permit before making the repairs. And we were not aware of this until after the removal was completed. And the contractor went and changed the brick to what you can see there, to a light limestone. Okay. Upon seeing that the heritage permit wasn't applied for, and I'm not sure how it came to be, but we retroactively applied for a heritage permit in November 2021. The Heritage Committee deferred the application in December, seeking more input from the homeowner. The homeowner did not want to remove the brick and replace it with a heritage color brick, even though the actual brick that was replaced was not heritage quality. It was something that was constructed in the 70s or 80s. And the Heritage Committee then recommended denial of the application in January of this year. So that is essentially the summary of this project, and I'm hoping to get some resolution today.
Thank you. So you're asking this committee to overturn that denial. So are there any, thank you. Can you unshare now, please, Ryan?
Yes, if I know how.
That's perfect. Thank you, Ryan. Are there any questions for Ryan before we get to the report? So let me see. I'm going to go into my chat right now. Aaliyah, do you see anything? No, thank you. Well, thank you. I'm going to ask Councillor Farr, Councillor Wilson to receive Ryan's presentation, please, and vote accordingly. No, and I'm good. Thank you. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know what happened. When it came up last time. Okay. Okay, thank you. And it's been 7-0. Thank you very much. So now we're on to 7.1. This is consent items, Hamilton Municipal Heritage Committee Report 22-001. Before we start putting it on the floor, I'm going to ask Councillor Pearson and Councillor Danko to put the report on the floor, and then I'm going to go to Councillor Pearson, who has a motion to amend this. Go ahead, Councillor Pearson.
So it's moved by myself, second by Councillor Danko, that the item is item 8.1 in the Hamilton Municipal Heritage Committee report, that it be lifted. I'm not sure now, that it be lifted and the recommendation of the committee be denied.
So to deny the denial.
Correct.
So what are it's Lisa, Elsie Kelsey here. So our first vote is voting on the recommendation that was in the committee
Correct.
report. So that recommendation was to deny. So if you agree with the denial, to say yes. If you do not agree with the denial, you'll vote no. And then we will
Okay.
have to vote a couple more times, depending on what happens.
Thank you for the clarification, Lisa.
Okay, so we have recommendation number 2 on the floor. If you vote yes, you're denying. If you vote no, it's to deny the deny. Does that make sense?
No.
Right. May I please have a vote on recommendation number 2 in the committee report, which would be approving the denial of the heritage permit, i.e. a yes is to enforce the denial, vote no if you disagree with the denial. So everybody got their votes up? Oh, sorry, Councillor Nan, my apologies.
Mhm.
I feel like I'm in control tower here and I haven't been here for a while, so I just gotta
No worries.
get sharp.
And it's a sharp control tower outfit today too, if I may say, Chair.
Woohoo.
Thank you,
Wilson has dibs on it,
colleagues.
just let me know.
Thank you, colleagues. As a guest of Planning Committee, just wanted to share a couple of quick comments on this and appreciating Ryan Sneak's presentation earlier. For the public consumption, the heritage permit for the garage cladding at 124 was denied by the Heritage Committee, and staff had recommended that it be approved. The limestone that was indicated in the pictures and the final work that was done is in keeping with the spirit of heritage in that district. You actually, if you take a drive around or walk around that St. Clair Boulevard, you do see a lot of beautiful limestone, and over time it does age and the color does shift and kind of start to match the historical limestone that's in the community. So I think that essential piece was missing in committee's deliberation, is that it is a type of natural form that is present and was used and is in alignment with the heritage components that that need to be preserved in this district. The garage in question was damaged, as you saw, by a fallen tree, and the work was handled through an insurance company. In terms of the permit, as was mentioned by Ryan Sneak, there was an attempt to retroactively apply for a heritage permit to ensure that that work didn't have to be undone and unnecessary costs be assumed by the owner. So yeah, it is the request, and I support the resident and the community there that have been diligently following through on the heritage components in this district, and doing so at cost of themselves and also with much pride. So again, requesting that the recommendation be denied and instead that the permit, retroactive permit, be granted by this committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Nan. So folks, the vote's coming up. If you vote yes, you're enforcing the denial. If you vote no, you disagree with the denial. So first vote, we're going to do this is our first one. Voting in progress. And we have 7-0 defeated. Thank you. Defeated, now we need to vote on the recommendation to approve the heritage permit, because we can't just leave that hanging out there. So please vote accordingly. If you vote yes, you're voting for the permit.
Does that have to have a mover and a seconder, Madam Chair? I'll move
Yes,
it.
we have Councillor
Thank you.
Pearson to move it. So sorry. And Councillor Danko, I believe you had for your second.
Thank you.
And while you're voting, then we go to a third vote. That carried 7-0. Thank you that the residents are happy. Now we need a mover and a seconder. So Councillor Pearson again, Councillor Danko, to approve the recommendations in the report as amended, as you just amended them.
Councillor Partridge is waving.
Councillor Partridge, my apologies. Well,
No,
okay.
your jacket
Make up your
more than
mind. Is
makes
it
up for the
Jack?
apology, no problem. So, Madam Chair, in the heritage report, I can't remember what item it is, but there is comments by the chair on the St. Giles file, and I didn't see an appendix or any attached documentation. So my question through you, please, to clerks, was this a verbal update, or is there a document with an official response on it, please?
Can we go to the staff of, because I don't believe Elsie Kelsey was the clerk of that meeting.
No, she
so do we
wasn't.
have the staff here from Heritage, please?
Or Councillor Pearson, I believe, was
Councillor
the chair.
Pearson? No.
Sorry,
She may-
Madam Chair, respectfully, we were in the middle of a vote to finish off the 124 St. Clair. Can we deal with Councillor Partridge's afterwards?
We finished with 1 St. Clair. We finished
We
with
did
that
finish
one.
with it. Yeah.
We're on the
I
third
did-
vote, which is the mover and seconder to approve the recommendations in the report as amended. So we voted twice.
Okay.
Once was to deny and once was to approve. So thank you.
Thank you.
So it's appropriate that it's now. So do we have any staff members that are here from the Heritage Committee, please, to respond? Ken, good morning. Can you please identify yourself? I know who you are.
Good morning, Madam Chair. Ken Coit, Manager, Heritage and Urban Design. Through the chair, I was in attendance at the meeting. It's my understanding they're waiting for some more communication before they formally respond. So there was no letter going forward at this point. It will be dealt with at the next meeting.
Thank
So
you.
there's no-
Okay,
Councillor
thank you.
Partridge.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. And so if I understand correctly, then it was tabled or it was referred to the next meeting, and we should have some sort of a document or an update at that time. Is that correct?
Through you, Madam Chair, that is my understanding.
Thank you, Councillor.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. Unless there's any planning staff that can add to that. Anita Fayback or?
Steve Robichaud, Assistant Councillor. Ken Coit is correct that it was there was a written correspondence was directed to the chair of the Municipal Heritage Committee in response to the St. Giles file, and the chair has been working in developing a response, and they just wanted to share that draft response with the members of the Heritage Committee prior to it being finalized at the next meeting, and then it'll be sent to the person who wrote to the Heritage Committee expressing concerns about the way the file on the file. And I think it was sent from the actual property owner as opposed to a third party. And so that the Heritage Committee felt that it was important that they just responded and be on the record to the letter that was received by the property owner or an agent for the property owner in relation to the designation and managing this file. So that will then, once that letter is finalized, be shared with all members of council, as well as the Heritage Committee once it's signed and sent out by the chair in response to the comments and concerns that were expressed in that letter. Thank you.
Thank you,
That's
Councillor.
yes, thank you, Madam Chair. That is very, very helpful because I mean, I'm quite interested in any document that has to do with that file. And I know Councillor Nan has worked incredibly hard on that. Don't know if she's still here, but thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Farr, you're on next, please. Oh, you canceled. My apologies. So we already have the vote on the table, moved by Councillor Pearson, second by Councillor Danko, to approve the recommendations in the report as amended. Thank you. We're on to 6.2. Viv Saunders from the Lakewood Beach Community Councils for item 7.2 and then 7.3. So, okay, so I'm going to suggest, Viv, that you do your 7.2. We deal with 7.2, and then I'll bring you back for 7.3, and we'll deal with 7.3. You have 5 minutes for each item. So, where are you? I saw your names earlier. Can you put your video on and your audio on, please, Ms. Saunders? I don't see Viv Saunders. Okay. I know she's here somewhere, but I don't see her on the panel. Oh, I'm at. Viv, are you out there? Okay, I know this is a bit unusual because I do see her on the panel now. So if it's the committee's will, let's go into 7.2, and then when Viv has her computer up and running properly, then she can speak after we have a quick staff update. Oh, there you are.
There, sorry.
That's okay. Okay.
Sorry about that. Okay, so we're all good now?
Do you have anything to share on the screen before you start?
No,
Okay.
It's just very briefly,
specifically, we were looking at Appendix B to the report PED 22022, and the Lakewood Beach Community Council is just seeking some clarifications on the list of concerns that are contained within the staff report. So it's basically we're asking questions today, and if committee can ask questions to staff because we understand that's the process. So we only have 3 questions. One of them being on the appendix, it looks like the whole block of the condominium townhouses back, I think it's called back lot onto Barton Street. And Barton Street, as we know, is going through a multi-million-dollar renaissance, basically, and having a pedestrian promenade. And within our existing Fruitland Winona secondary plan along Barton Street, lots that have fencing and visual barriers are not allowed. So it appears that way on that. So we're just looking for clarification on will that be one huge continuous long stream of fencing along those 2 large blocks. The second question we had, or clarification, is Barton Street is a secondary corridor. And secondary corridors, as we just recently learned with a OLT decision, our intent right now are intended to accommodate 40% of our residential intensification target. So about 16% of our total housing. In grids 2, that is doubling. So corridors are going to be presumably intended to accommodate 32% of our total housing throughout the city. So the density along that corridor doesn't seem to align with the direction we're going as far as infill directions. So that was second question or clarification. And the third is whether or not this development is transit supportive. There's all sorts of different numbers out there as far as how many housing and how many people per unit, and it's unclear whether or not it actually will meet Metrolinx's guidelines on a transit supportive development, especially considering Barton Street is going to have transit. So that is a question as well. So just those 3 areas we were looking for clarification on, if possible, through committee.
Thanks, Viv. Thank you. Any questions for Ms. Saunders at this moment? I have one. If Councillor Ferguson, sorry, Councillor Pearson, was your hand up?
Oh, sorry, sorry, Madam Chair.
Oh, you're shooing away a fly.
I had to shift back and forth on the screen. So,
no worries.
I want to thank Viv for the 3 points that she's raised, and just that staff are here and that on the overview of the report, when we get to that they provide some context to those questions. Thank you.
Correct. Thank you. All right. And Councillor Ferguson, if you could just take over, because I wrote them down as Councillor Pearson did as well. So
certainly, go ahead.
Ferguson, thank you. So through you to Viv. Viv, when you ask for the transit supported, are you looking for density target numbers? Is that what you're referring to when you talk about transit supported?
How many people per hectare? Because
so that is density.
Supportive is more, it's people versus units. Units are important, but it's more important the number of people that will be in those units are projected to be.
Okay, thanks. That's all I needed was just clarification. Thank you.
Take the chair back.
Thank you, sir. So thank you. So it's been moved by Councillor Pearson, second by Councillor Farr to receive Viv Saunders' presentation. Please vote accordingly. And then we'll move on to 7. And I'm looking for the results, and they are, I'm assuming they'll be fine. Councillor Partridge announced that she had somewhere to go today. All right. So we have a 6 We're on to 7.2. This is the appeal of zoning bylaw amendment application ZAC 20-043 and draft plan of subdivision application 25T 202009 for lands located at 262 Mcnealy Road and 1036 and 1090 Barton Street in Stoney Creek, PED 22022, Ward 10. So I'm going to ask that the staff just does a quick overview of this because we did have a delegate, and just to clarify everybody with their questions. Go ahead. And I believe we don't know who's doing this. Oh, there we go.
Good morning, Anita Fayback, Manager of
Thanks,
Development
Anita.
Planning. I seem to be having some camera issues, so it looks like I'm frozen, but I'm here. So I'll just give a really high level overview, and then I made a note of the questions that were asked by the delegates, so I can provide a response to those. So we did receive an application for a draft, a zoning bylaw amendment and a draft plan of subdivision for the lands located at 262 Mcnealy Road and 1036 and 1090 Barton Street in Stoney Creek. I'm just going to turn my camera off if that's
probably better.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So the purpose and effect of the applications is to facilitate the development of 545 residential units, being 154 single and semi-detached dwellings, 206 street townhouses, 185 block townhouse units, a neighborhood park, and a block for stormwater management pond. There is also proposed a change in zoning in order to facilitate the proposed land uses. If you refer to the staff report, page 4 of 4, it does outline in terms of that there are still some outstanding concerns. So the application certainly has been circulated and comments have been received, but there are still some outstanding issues. Some relate to planning matters in terms of yard setbacks and unit widths. There's some concerns from a growth management perspective related to on-street parking design and engineering. And in terms of the engineering design not meeting the municipal standards or the Block 3 servicing strategy of the Fruitland-Winona secondary plan, as well as the natural heritage considerations from the Block 3 servicing strategy as well, and some urban design and waste collection concerns. So the application was appealed by the applicant on October 26, 2021, which was 347 days after the receipt of the initial application. So in terms of the questions raised, I will attempt to answer the first question and the third question, and then I may defer to Mr. Robichaud in terms of grids and intensification. So the question related to Appendix B, which is the draft concept plan and the units that would be would appear to be backing onto Barton Street. Certainly we would have sort of a shared concern. I mean, the pedestrian promenade in the secondary plan envision units fronting onto that. So what would likely be supported by staff or requested by staff that these be treated as rear lane townhouses so that they appear to front onto Barton Street, but their access would be from the rear. So we would not be supportive of having a line of fences along Barton Street, and that would come through further discussions in terms of the design and as well as the design of the units and the spacing between those units. And then in terms of the development being transit supportive, we have not done a persons per unit assessment. We could undertake that. There's different persons per units that are assigned to different unit types. So we could endeavor to do that we have not done that. But in terms of just overall transit supportiveness, I mean, this is introducing a number of different unit types in the range of 545 units. So that would bring additional people to the area that is that are currently not there, and in terms of and adding that population in terms of being transit supportive. And then the third question related to accommodation along the secondary corridor and grid. So I may defer to Mr. Robichaud for a response to that question.
Thank you, Anita. So we're on to Director Robichaud, please. Where are you, Mr. Robichaud? There you are. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. And just to be very clear, this is an information report in response to an
Yes.
appeal by the owner to the OLT. Staff are not making any recommendation. It is mainly for the benefit of the committee and the public that an appeal has been filed. In looking at the applicant's materials that they did provide, the concept plan did show rear lane townhouses fronting onto Barton Street. So those units would essentially have a front door on Barton Street, as well as a front door onto the internal condominium road. And the analysis provided by the applicant shows an overall population density of 70.4 persons per hectare. And that would be consistent with the MTO transit supportive guidelines, depending on for bus level transit service. I was just looking to confirm, I believe that these lands are outside of the built boundary, so that they are not subject to the provincial intensification policies, but rather the provincial density targets, which I think are 50 persons and jobs per hectare. So this development would be meeting or exceeding that requirement, as well as a greenfield site. Their application is generally in alignment with the Fruitland Winona secondary plan, as well as some of the work that's being done in terms of the block servicing strategies. But all of these issues still need to be resolved before staff can come forward to committee and council, whether or not we can settle and reach a resolution of this matter, or if we are too far apart, then we will be seeking instructions at a future point in time to oppose the applications and proceed to the hearing at that point in time. Either way, all the residents will be notified in accordance with OLT requirements who wish to participate in the hearing, should they wish to oppose this development application one way or the other. But as I indicated, based on the density that is being proposed and the vision that was laid out in the Fruitland Winona secondary plan, this proposal is consistent with the requirements of both the growth plan and the PPS, as well as the city's official plan in terms of how new neighborhoods are to develop. And that there are additional elements that still need to be resolved in terms of urban design and engineering, stormwater management, et cetera, et cetera. So it's still, this application was appealed before staff could reach a professional opinion on the merits of the application. And again, this report was simply just to inform committee and the public that the appeal had been filed by the applicant. Thank you.
Thanks, Steve, for that reminder. I should have said that right from the get-go, that this is only information. That's why it's under consent. So are there any questions or sorry, I got to get back into chat. Councillor Pearson, then Councillor Danko. Go ahead, Councillor Pearson.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Steve and Anita, for all of the update, recognizing that this is just an information report. So I think, Steve, that you did mention, and I just want to clarify, that even though this appeal has been filed for lack of decision, will there be ongoing discussions with the applicant or their agents as far as trying to resolve the outstanding issues?
Through you, Madam Chairman, to the council, yes, that is correct. Both our legal department and the applicant's lawyer have worked out sort of a process in which the applicant can make engineering or other submissions to the city. We will review them and then respond back to our legal staff as to whether or not they have addressed those issues or concerns. Like I said, generally, if we're trying to implement, the applicant, I think, appealed this in order to advance their development application, not because there was a fundamental questions about some of the land use. They're working to implement the Fruitland Winona secondary plan. And I think they were just wanting to, I don't want to say queue jump, but they wanted to help focus staff's attention on this by filing the appeal. We see that in other situations where they call it a friendly appeal, but it's still subject to that process and it becomes a little bit more formalized in terms of the negotiations and the discussions. And then there will still be opportunities we can work with your office in terms of how we keep the residents and the public informed as we move forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor.
Thank you, and that's a perfect segue. So just for my colleagues and staff are aware, there was a neighborhood meeting on this development. And, I had basically consensus of support for this development as far as the neighborhood, which was quite pleasing and refreshing at the time. So looking forward to things moving along. And I just want to clarify as well, knowing that this may not happen as much in Hamilton area, but in Hamilton proper, but the concern of rear yards fronting on Barton, it has become, I'm going to say, almost a norm now. Mr. Robichaud can confirm, where we have townhouses that actually have frontages on the main streets. I'm going to give an example of Barton and Glover. but they actually access through the rear. Is that correct, Mr. Robichaud? And that's what be proposed here on Barton Street, correct?
Through you, Madam Chairman, that is correct. They're designed such that they would have a traditional main street, so that the facade facing Barton Street would not have a garage. It would have a front door and windows and habitable space, and that space would then be designed to function as a front yard facing Barton Street. And the actual garage itself would be accessed from internal to the development, either from a secondary street or the condominium road, and then would be working to ensure that there's adequate amenity space provided within those rear lane townhouses. And that seems to be the development industry has responded to that to avoid the reverse lotting concerns where you end up with fences. We may require that there be a fence installed for aesthetic purposes, and so that people let their dog out or their children they can delineate their property. But we want to make sure that it's not like a 6 foot or an 8 foot high wooden fence unless otherwise required as a noise attenuation measure. Thank you.
Right.
Thank you,
That
Councillor.
thank you. And one last, it also addresses the concerns, if I can ask Mr. Robichaud, of numerous driveway accesses coming out onto Barton Street, because then the complex would only have one or possibly two entrances and exits, correct?
Through you, Madam Chairman, that is correct. There would be controlled access to Barton Street from the local municipal streets. And that would avoid the situation where you would have multiple driveways onto Barton Street, which would cause concerns for vehicles attempting either to enter or exit the properties or making left turns into the property that would actually end up blocking traffic trying to travel along Barton Street. And further, there's a vision that Barton Street have a pedestrian promenade. And by having the reverse lane townhouses, we are able to maintain that pedestrian promenade and link the stormwater management ponds with the municipal sidewalks and the cycling infrastructure to create a more pedestrian-oriented environment along this side of Barton Street. Thank you.
Thank you,
If I
Councillor.
thank you, Madam Chair. Just as a closing comment, then I appreciate staff can continue to work with the developer, his agents, and certainly understanding. I mean, just as what Mr. Robichaud has just mentioned, this is just one piece of a puzzle for all of Barton Street and the development going on, the Fritland-Winona secondary plan, the urbanization and widening of Barton Street, transit, the whole works. It's all one big puzzle, and this is just a part of it. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Danko, you're up next, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you to staff, who is 1312733 Ontario Inc.?
To the chair, to the councillor, that would be the
it's Losani Homes and Brant Haven Homes is my understanding. Sorry, Anita. It's a joint venture between those two development companies. That's okay. My understanding. I haven't as to who the applicants are. I apologize, Anita.
Thank you. So in the report, it mentions some of the issues that the city have with this development, reduction in yard setbacks and unit widths. So specifically, what does that mean?
Through the chair to the councillor, that would relate. Yard setbacks would be the front, side, and rear yard setbacks. So some concerns related to what's being proposed, and unit width would be the width of each unit in terms of meeting the required zoning. Generally, its unit widths are somewhere in the range of about 6 meters, roughly. So the proposal here would be to provide or propose unit widths that would be less than what the zoning would require.
Thank you, Councillor.
Thank you. So on one sense, there are homes that are too big for the lots that are available. And then the other sense, the unit width doesn't meet the requirements. So they'd be really, long and skinny?
Through the chair to the councillor, that would be correct. There does appear to be some adjustments proposed, as I mentioned, related to the front, side, and rear yards, as well as the lot frontage and the unit widths and lot coverage. So yes, I would suggest that there are some proposed deficiencies in terms of what those setbacks would be between buildings, which can create concerns from an access perspective and potentially engineering, as well as the front and rear yard setbacks.
Thank you, Councillor.
Thank you. And then the concern with on-street parking does not meet requirements. Again, I think perhaps because the units are so narrow and the lots are so narrow that then when you add the driveways in, there's no room for on-street parking?
Through the chair to the councillor, the city standard is 40% of to accommodate 40% of on-street parking. So that could be a concern, or it could be just taking a look at how their driveways are laid out, and the opportunity to sort of double up driveways to provide increased opportunity for on-street parking. But that's certainly something that we would still need to review with the applicant in terms of being able to meet that requirement.
Thank you, councillor.
And the narrow frontages hinder adequate engineering.
Through the chair to the councillor, I believe Mr. Cora is here and could possibly speak to this better than I could, but the way that I would sort of review that, it's coupled with the lot width, and as I mentioned, those sort of reduced setbacks, and that may not provide adequate space in terms of being able to deal with stormwater. I see Mr. Cora is here and he may want to elaborate further.
Through you, Madam Chair, I'm Binu Korea, Manager of Development Approvals. Anita is actually correct. The main challenges is with the narrow lots. The swales and the stormwater management is actually going to be an issue. And also, you are absolutely correct. The narrow lots also create 40% parking requirements. It's challenges because of the driveways and snow storage and all that challenges is an impact.
Thank you, councillor.
Thank you. So I guess I fully support the city fighting this with every means possible, whether that's at the Ontario Land Tribunal or whatnot. I'm interested that the developers, Losani and Branthaven, think that they're going to get an easy ride at the Ontario Land Tribunal, it seems. I don't know why developers continuously come to us with these kinds of substandard developments that are, this is nothing new that we're asking for, nothing, difficult or out of the ordinary. They're building minimum code steel frame McMansions and not even to basic city standards, and appealing it to the Ontario Land Tribunal in order to cut out any kind of resident, involvement in rezoning at the same time that we are moving forward with our growth planning for the next 30 years. So I guess you can hear the frustration I have with this, and is just I'm tired of us continuously accepting what I consider to be, in my opinion, substandard development that doesn't meet the needs of our residents, and it's infinitely frustrating. My final question, Madam Chair, is just, if this does go to the Ontario Land Tribunal, is there an opportunity for groups such as Stop Sprawl and various coalitions to basically blow up this entire development and start from scratch? Recent developments at the Ontario Land Tribunal have been extremely in favor of infill density and a different growth strategy. And this just the one up on West 5th and Stone Church, they approved density 30% higher than the urban Hamilton official plan. So is there an opportunity here, whether it's through the city or through other groups, to have an alternate appeal to the Ontario Land Tribunal for something that is better and more in line with our 30-year growth plan?
Who would like to take that, please?
I can start through the councillor and then through the chair, and then I may ask, I think Patrick McDonald is on the call as well, but in terms of procedure, and Patrick can likely speak to this better, is that there are groups that when there is an appeal, they can request to have status in terms of that appeal, and then through that, if that's agreed to, then they would be able to participate to a certain extent in the hearing. I believe Steve had mentioned that in other cases, when there have been appeals for non-decision, we have had the opportunity to host a non-statutory public meeting as an opportunity to hear from the public and to take that information and have that provided to staff. So there would be that possibility as well. I believe, Councillor Danko, we did that for a property in your ward maybe 2 years ago. So there would be that opportunity. And maybe Patrick would like to elaborate a little bit more in terms of the procedure at the tribunal.
Patrick, please introduce yourself.
Good morning, Patrick McDonald with Legal Services. So through the chair, once an appeal is filed, the Planning Act and the tribunal's rules allow for people to request either party or participant status, but they can't formulate an alternative appeal under any process under that legislation. So it would have to be through the existing appeal if there's going to be any involvement.
Thank you. Councillor Danko.
Yeah, just a final thought on that. In the decision for West Fifth and Stonechurch, the tribunal was very clear that they wanted input from residents, and it was an important part of their decision-making process. So if this does go to an appeal, I would definitely encourage those groups that have an alternative vision to be involved in the process. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. And I see that we're running out of speakers, and this again is just to receive. So I'm going to ask Councillor Pearson, I believe, and did I have a second for this one? Councillor Pearson, go ahead.
Yeah, Madam Chair, I just want to understand Councillor Danko's question, because I just want to be sure that, you know, there has been a neighborhood meeting on this. The issues are issues as far as what our bylaws require, that staff are working out with the developer. So I just want to be sure, I mean, the density is here, and that the neighborhood who have no issues with this development per se are also reflected in any conversations going forward. Thank you.
Thank you. So that was a question, Councillor, or is that just a statement?
Well, I'm just going to leave it as a statement because I just want to be sure. I mean, there may be some issues, but staff are working through them, and these are really planning issues, site plan issues, etc. But the neighborhood as a whole, that we had the neighborhood meeting, we're in support of this development. Thank you.
And might I add, the secondary plan took about 10 years to finish. So we have Councillor Pearson, seconded by, I'm going to just pick somebody, Councillor Farr, that we receive 7.2, please, with our thanks to the staff. I have a feeling mine went nuts again. Sorry. Yes. Okay, thank you very much. Right. This is again consent item. This is for information only. We have Viv Saunders, who is going to speak first. Elsie Kelsey thinks I'm sleeping at the switch here. Can everybody please mute yourselves? And Viv, you're back up again for 7.3. And for the public record, this is a status update for site plan control application DA 19020 for lands located at 310 Francis Avenue, Stoney Creek, PED 19115A in Ward 10. Go ahead, Viv, you're on again, and you know the rules.
Hello again. Thank you. We do appreciate the new information within the neighborhood as far in regard to this report. We were in the midst of retaining experts and with the intent of requesting party status at the OLT regarding the Committee of Adjustment denials. So now we're noticing that in this report, the applicant has also appealed the site plan application, which is a game changer. So we're looking to committee and staff to provide even more information than what is in this report if possible. Within the report, it says staff intends and will defend the Committee of Adjustment denial on the variances, but we don't see anything in there where staff intends to support the site plan application denial. So we would like clarification on that if possible. Also within Appendix J, you'll see that there's 5 emails of public input, and it's listed in the report as being all of the public submissions since April 2019. Those emails, just to clarify, were specifically just on the site plan application. Within the Committee of Adjustment submissions, because they had a meeting, there was well over another 80 submissions. So we just wanted to clarify with committee that the neighborhood is still opposed to this development, strongly opposed. it is a monumental development. Just to put all, this is somewhere between 600 million to $1 billion in sales revenue. It's going to take deep pockets to defend it. We want to be part of that, but we want to also be realistic going forward as far as will we fight this as a city? I know that we could push back on some of it, but it's going to be expensive. It's going to be lengthy. So we don't know if mediation is an option, something that can be talked about. We're just really looking to committee now and staff to ask some questions or seek clarification on what the next steps might be, because it's huge. It's a huge development. Thank you.
Okay. All right. So Viv, are you amicable of taking this offline and asking our senior director to give you that process, or do you want this? I'm looking for direction from you right now, please.
Sure. What you're saying? I'm sorry. You're saying that take it offline to speak with.
Well, our senior director, Steve Robichaud, to find out what direction it is, just to let you know, because site plan can only be appealed by the applicant or the city of Hamilton. So first I'll go to the speakers list and then we'll come back to you. So is there any questions for Viv Saunders as right now? Seeing none, thank you. Oh, thank you, Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to make sure I understand the issues that Ms. Saunders is raising. And I thought I heard two, perhaps. She's looking for some clarification, although this is an information report, whether the city will be opposing the site plan. And two, she referenced Appendix J, in which there's reference to 5 emails, but she wanted to underscore the fact that those are just with respect to the site plan. With respect to the Committee of Adjustment, there's in excess of 80 submissions. And I think is she looking for clarity, excuse me, from this committee that we're aware of that. I'm just looking, just want to make sure I'm accurately.
I think you said what I was trying to say. So Viv, there was a question in there for you. Did you hear what Councillor Wilson was looking for?
Yes. Yes, but the subject matter is status update for the site plan control application, but the site plan application denial will be heard at the OLT along with the Committee of Adjustment denial. So the combination of those two denials from 2 different areas, there were well over 80 submissions. So we had thought that this status update, because it includes both of those denials and both of those appeals, should be inclusive of all of the submissions.
Okay, Councillor Wilson.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other speakers? I see Councillor Pearson. I believe that's to staff. Councillor Pearson? Okay, thank you. So moved by Councillor Pearson, second by Councillor Wilson to receive Viv Saunders' presentation, and please vote accordingly. And then we will go to 7. Thank you, Viv, and thank you for turning off your camera. Okay. Councillor Farr, there we go, 6-0. Thank you very much. Now we're on the status update for this site plan control application. Councillor Pearson, did you want to ask a question or did you want staff to give a brief overview? Up to you.
A brief overview is what I would like to ask staff,
right.
and then I just have question to the previous speakers' points. Thank you.
Oh, super. So let's have a brief overview, please. Steve Robichaud or Anita Fabic, and then we'll go to Councillor Pearson for clarification.
Good morning.
Good morning, Anita. Thank you.
Bit of history is the Planning Committee is aware of. So we did receive an initial site plan application going back to 2019 for the development of 3 towers. That initial application varied in height from 48 to 54 and 59 stories in height. We did have a development review team meeting to discuss the comments on that site plan, and generally staff did have concerns which were flagged and reiterated to the applicant. There were also some zoning issues. It did not meet the site-specific zoning that was developed a number of years ago. And for all of those reasons, the city did not issue conditional approval. And so following that, there was a resubmission where they did make some tweaks to the application. Again, staff did a recirculation and advised the applicant that there were still outstanding concerns. And so the staff did not issue conditional approval at that time. And then following that, they being the applicant, made an application to the Committee of Adjustment for a number of variances. Planning staff did not support those. That application was denied by the Committee of Adjustment and subsequently appealed at the end of 2021 by the applicant to the Ontario Land Tribunal. And then following that denial by the Committee of Adjustment, staff denied the site plan control application on December 21st, 2021. And then so subsequent to both of those decisions being made, in middle of January of this year, the applicant appealed the site plan, and they've also appealed the decision of the Committee of Adjustment. So that's generally a high-level overview. There's been certainly lots of conversations and discussions with the applicant from their initial submission to where we are today. And then in terms of the questions from the delegate about the staff support for the denial, as I mentioned, just mentioned, staff did deny the site plan. So that sort of was the divisional decision on that site plan application, and staff would be attending the hearing to defend the denial that was issued by staff.
Councillor Pearson, I'm coming to you now for any questions or for clarity.
No, I just want to be sure Anita was done. Thank you. Thank you, Anita, for that overview, quick overview. So Madam Chair, I just want to add, I want to thank staff. As everyone's aware, this has been a long-standing development issue in Ward 10. And if I have to go back, I'm going to say it was Yvette Rubinski originally, then it went on to Melanie Schneider. And I think now we have Tage, if I'm correct, who is overseeing this application. It has gone through several iterations, and appreciate certainly the concerns of the neighborhood and the appeal that and the denial that came from Committee of Adjustments. So the issues that remain are obviously the most important are the parking and amenity space have been the issues all along. But I just wanted to thank staff, and I guess just clarification, Anita, that the site plan application was appealed. Was that appealed after the original appeal by the applicant for the Committee of Adjustments decision?
Thank you, Anita.
Through the chair to the councillor, I'm just confirming the date. I believe the sequencing of events was the appeal of the Committee of Adjustment followed by the appeal of the denial of the site plan.
Thank you for that clarification, because they were done separately, and appreciate that, and they met the timelines. So certainly interested in this moving forward. Madam Chair, I also want to add that we did have a neighborhood meeting. It was coordinated by the applicant because I felt that, you know, the residents did not have any history with regards to this development because it was allowed. It was just a matter of the site plan being finalized and the variance certainly coming forward. So there was a neighborhood meeting that was held on November the 18th last year to apprise the residents of the ongoing proposal. So I just wanted to put that on the table as well. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Do I see any other speakers before we go to receiving the report? It'll be moved by Councillor Pearson again. It's in her ward, seconded by Councillor Ferguson, that we receive 7.2 or 7.3, my apologies, DA 1920 for 312 Francis Avenue, Stoney Creek, PED 19115A. Please vote accordingly.
It's 310, Francis, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Sorry, I had too many numbers.
No, I just panicked going, where's 312? I'm not dealing with that one. Thank you.
It's right next door. Thank you, 6-0. So now we're on to public hearings, written delegations. The public have been advised of how to pre-register for a virtual delegate at the public meetings on today's agenda. Members of the public, in accordance with the provisions of the Planning Act, please be advised that if a person or public body does not make oral submissions at a public meeting or makes written submissions to the Council of the City of Hamilton before Council makes that decision regarding the development applications before us today, the person and/or public body may not be entitled to appeal the decision of the Council of the City of Hamilton to the Ontario Land Tribunal, and the person or public body may not be added as a party to the hearing of an appeal before the Ontario Land Tribunal unless, in the opinion of the tribunal, there are reasonable grounds to do so. So keeping with Ward 10, 9.1, this is a city initiative, CI, -20-A, to amend the Urban Hamilton Official Plan and Zoning Bylaw for lands located at 1400 Baseline Road, Stoney Creek, PED 20002A in Ward 10. This is an outstanding business list item, folks, and just so that you don't feel like you're in Groundhog Day, this has come back at the staff's request to some housekeeping as far as I believe for notification and communications. So I believe we have, do we have delegates for this? Yes, we do. So can we please have Alyssa Mahood please talk about this, give us an overview, and then we will go to our delegates on this item. Good morning, Alyssa. Oh my gosh, it's been a while.
I know. I'm back. Thank you so much. I'm just going to share my screen. So I have a presentation that I was going to do because this essentially was a reset of this application. So it's going to go through the whole presentation again and recommendation if you'd like, or if you preferred, I could just update you on how we addressed council's motion for enhanced public consultation and go from there. So just let me know what you would prefer.
Councillor Pearson, this is your ward. Go ahead.
Yes, Madam Chair, and respectfully, and I apologize that it's going to take some time, but I really think that it should be a full presentation in light of the fact that many residents may be streaming in, and it's been a while. I think it's been about a year now, Alyssa, so if that, I would appreciate that. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Great, no
Thank
problem.
you,
I'll just
and thank you, Alyssa, if you don't mind.
Yeah, no problem. I'm just going to pull up the presentation. All right, can everybody see that? Great.
Yep, thank you very much.
Thank you so much. All right, so again, my name is Alyssa Mahood. I'm the Senior Project Manager in the Sustainable Community section, and I'm here today to present to you the City-initiated Official Plan Amendment and Zoning Bylaw Amendment for the City-owned property located at 1400 Baseline Road in Stoney Creek, Ward 10. The subject lands are located just north of the QEW and are bounded by Baseline Road to the north, Lockport Way to the west, and the North Service Road to the south. The property has frontage of approximately 175 meters along Baseline Road and is about 80 meters deep for a total land area of 1.17 hectares or 2.9 acres in size. And the property is currently vacant and on municipal services. As you can see from the aerial photograph, the property is surrounded by single-family dwellings to the north and townhouses to the east, and a neighborhood commercial plaza to the west, and 50 Point Conservation Area is located to the northeast. Here are some photos of the site. Photos 1 and 2 were taken looking south from Baseline Road and Lockport Way towards the subject lands. Photo 3 and 4 were taken from Baseline Road looking north at the residential development on Raintree Drive. Photo number 5 is a photo taken from the townhouse development that's just adjacent to the east side of the property on Red Cedar Court. And then photo 6 was taken from Baseline Road looking west towards the commercial plaza. In 2018, the city declared the property as surplus, and the Affordable Housing and Site Selection Subcommittee identified the property as part of a disposition strategy to create funds to support affordable housing initiatives throughout the city. The property was also identified as one that would benefit from updating the planning instruments prior to sale. In May of 2019, Council approved a motion directing staff to update the land use and zoning for the property to make the lands development ready and to maximize the development potential of the site. Staff then began the review and commenced the city-initiated official plan and zoning bylaw amendment process. And on January 12th of 2021, we brought forward an official plan amendment and zoning bylaw amendment for Planning Committee's consideration. At that meeting, Planning Committee deferred the amendments to a future statutory public meeting, and directed staff to schedule a neighborhood meeting and carry out an enhanced public notice process, which included posting a notice sign on the property, expanding the 120-meter radius for mailing Planning Act notices, and placing the notice in both the Hamilton Spectator and the Stoney Creek News. Signs were then posted on the property and the enhanced public notice process was carried out. And on March 18th of 2021, staff held a virtual neighborhood public meeting. There were about 59 participants that actually attended, and a summary of the meeting was provided in the public feedback report, which is attached as Appendix F to the staff report. So the next couple of slides, I'm going to provide an overview of the amendments, and the yellow highlights indicate some of the changes to the amendments that have been made since we presented it back in January of 2021. And these changes were to address some comments we received from the public as well as from internal staff. So currently the lands are designated as low density residential 2B in the Urban Lakeshore Area Secondary Plan. And this designation permits singles, semi-detached, duplex dwellings with a density of 1 to 29 units per net residential hectare. Currently, planning staff had carried out the analysis to determine and test a variety of built forms and development potential while respecting the character of the existing residential development to the north and east. Due to the large lot size and the location of the site, there's a variety of residential built form and site plan configurations that can actually be accommodated on this property. So the planning analysis that was carried out demonstrated that the medium density residential 3 designation is a suitable designation for the site for the following reasons. The site is large enough to provide sufficient setbacks to mitigate against the impacts of a medium density development. So shadows from development can be contained within the site due to the setbacks and lot coverage requirements of the zoning. The site is located on the periphery of the neighborhood, close to major transportation routes and a recreation area. These are all ideal location qualities for medium density developments as identified in the policies of our Urban Hamilton official plan. And the medium density designation will provide a unique opportunity in this area to provide a mix of dwelling types other than the predominant grade related dwelling types found in the Urban Lakeshore Area Secondary Plan. So currently the medium density designation of the secondary plan only permits 9-story apartment buildings. So we have added a site-specific policy area that will also allow for multiple dwellings, and that would include block townhouses, masonettes, and stacked townhouses. And this is to align with the permitted uses of the Volume 1 of the medium density designation of the official plan. And then highlighted in yellow, you will see here that we've added a policy to the secondary plan that clarifies that the city may require the developer to submit studies to demonstrate that the height, orientation, location, design, and massing of the buildings do not unduly overshadow, block light, or result in loss of privacy of adjacent properties. And these are all studies that we could request at site plan, but putting them in the official plan provides more clarity and direction for when those applications are received. The current zoning of the property is a neighborhood development zone, and that zone only permits uses that existed on the date that the zoning bylaw was approved. And in this case, the lands are vacant. And the proposed amendment would rezone the lands to the multiple residential 3 zone and modified slightly with a holding provision. And that's the current zone in the Stoney Creek zoning bylaw. So there are a number of modifications that have been made to the zoning that are explained in Appendix D to the staff report. There are modifications to the side setback for an apartment building. And this is new. We have added a 30-meter setback from the existing residential or property line between this site and the red property or the townhouses on Red Cedar Crescent. In the previous zoning, it was 7.5 meters, but we did this to address concerns from the property owners in that area that of having a potential for a 9-story building being so close to their properties. So there's a 30-meter setback in that location, which is new. The zoning bylaw also requires setbacks and stepbacks for building height. Increases to ensure that there's an appropriate transition to neighboring properties and to ensure any impacts of development are contained within the site. Thus, this has been carried forward from the previous zoning bylaw that was presented in January. And as you can see here in the diagrams, really A shows that that's that angular plane. So the taller you're going to go, you're going to have to increase height equivalent to stepping it back from the property line. And then B just shows if the developer wanted to do a 9-story building without stepping, they'd have to, to achieve 33 meters, they'd have to step back 33 meters. And as well, there's been a modification to the parking regulations. We had heard through our neighborhood meeting there was concerns about on-street parking. We had provided a slight reduction in the previous zoning to align parking regulations with our zoning bylaw 05200 parking regulations, but due to concerns, we're going to revert back to the Stoney Creek bylaw, which is slightly higher. There have been some changes as well to holding provision conditions. So we heard a lot of concerns about functional servicing report not being completed prior to the rezoning and official plan amendment to the site. So we ended up carrying out a servicing study by ACOM, who concluded that there's enough capacity, unallocated capacity in the Shippey pumping station to accommodate the proposed density, and that there's no impacts from the amendments on the water pressure in District 1. So adequate water pressure can be maintained. So we are able to remove the requirement for the functional servicing report in the holding. We've kept the traffic impact study because that all depends on the built form. So depending on whether or not it's a 9-story building or townhouses, they would need to submit a traffic impact study to see if there are any upgrades required, sidewalks, signals, etc. from that development. And then we added 2 new studies for clarification purposes. These can be requested at site plan, but we received internal comments from cultural heritage and growth management that to make it more explicit, place them under the holding provision. So we've added those. So staff recommends that the proposed official plan and zoning bylaw have merit and can be supported for the following reasons. The size and location of subject property make it a suitable site for medium density residential development. It's located on the periphery of the 50-point neighborhood with access to an arterial road and in close proximity to both a neighborhood commercial area, major transportation routes, and recreational uses. It's suitable for medium density development. It provides an opportunity for a mix of housing. It also will facilitate residential development that can respect the existing neighborhood character based on the zoning bylaw and provisions, which are ensuring that anything greater than 3 stories would be set back or stepped back. The proposed amendments are consistent with the provincial policy statement, conform to the growth plan, and they comply with the intent of the Urban Hamilton official plan. And that's it. Thank you very much for the presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions that anybody has.
Thank you. And if you don't mind, Alyssa, unless we need the presentation, can you please take it down for me?
Yes, I'm trying.
That way we can see you better. Councillor Pearson, I have you down. I believe you wanted to ask the staff questions.
I
Go
do.
ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Alyssa, for that actually concise presentation again. Appreciate it. So with the amendments that are being made, and I know initially when you came forward last year, was January of last year, we came forward with the presentation. So I think when we had discussions as well, the intent was to zone highest and best use. It was to zone so that we know this is the max that could potentially go on this piece of property. Is that correct, Alyssa?
Yes,
Thank
through
you,
the chair to the
Alyssa.
councillor. Yeah, it is correct. And it's we looked at what can we achieve on the site, which is still good planning.
Correct. And the reason for that was, I mean, it's not saying we don't know, but we're going to put it on the market. The real estate will be putting it on the market, and it will be the intent of whoever comes in of what they decide to develop, but knowing this is the highest use they can have, correct?
Yes,
Thank
that's
you,
correct.
Alyssa.
Yep, through the chair to the councillor.
I just want to be sure that my colleagues understand that it's an unusual way of zoning. So I just want to be sure, because we want to be sure that it is, we have a defensible development proposal. Should a developer come forward and decide to go to challenge and apply for an intensification and go even higher and go to the OLT. Through you, Madam Chair, to Alyssa.
Yep, through the chair to the councillor. Yes. So I mean, the zoning bylaw, because there's setback requirements from the MTO, And in order to basically mitigate, shadow impacts, et cetera, you really have a small building envelope if you're going to be building that 9-story building. So, and with a 35% lot coverage. So we tested a number of scenarios, and then with the density as well. Like there's not, I mean, they'd have to have a really good planning justification to exceed that height. We've done that study and analysis, and from my professional opinion in bringing this forward, that this is the highest and best use that can be achieved while still maintaining all the other good planning principles on the site.
Right.
Thank you. Councillor?
Thank you for that, Alyssa. And I guess my comment is appreciate the increase of the 30-meter setback to the Red Cedar townhouse development to the east. That's 100 feet for everyone, so that's quite a setback distance. And certainly adjusting to deal with the height plane, etc., of any development proposal that goes forward to address shadowing and overshadowing, etc. I do want to thank Alyssa. She's done a tremendous amount of work on this file, Madam Chair, and certainly to the neighborhood who has contributed in their emails and their comments. We did have the neighborhood meeting on March 18th last year. It was convened and run by a consultant who did an excellent job. There were, as was mentioned, 59 participants. So appreciate all the comments that have come in and appreciate the amount of work that has been done on this to move this property zoning decision forward. Thank you.
Thank you. And I have Councillor Danko next, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And just so I'm clear that whomever does purchase this property would also have an opportunity to put an application for rezoning if that was, or appeal to the Ontario Land Tribunal if that was their choice.
Alyssa? Chair to the councillor, yep. They do have a right to do that, and it would have to be evaluated at that time.
Thank you. And I guess the reason I'm asking that question is what we're proposing here. I'm kind of questioning why we're not shooting for higher, much higher. Again, the Ontario Land Tribunal, and I've already used this example today, but I think it's a shift in thinking that's coming from the province and from what's being approved by the province through the Ontario Land Tribunal. Again, West 5th and Stonechurch, 9-story apartment building, 216 units with a density of 300 units per hectare, which I believe is 3 times what we're permitting here. And they also specifically dismissed concerns about setbacks and impacts on neighborhood residences and considered it a community in transition. So they're specifically looking at what the future use was going to be, not what the current use is. So I suspect that whomever does purchase this property would be shooting much higher than what we're approving here today.
Thank you. Alyssa, did you want to respond to that?
Through the chair to the councillor. So I think there's a number of things that need to be taken into consideration for this site. One is servicing. The second would be baseline road and the capacity. Right now at 99 units per hectare, we have spoken to transportation and they don't see great impacts from that density. But then there's also looking at the Urban Lakeshore area secondary plan, and it's not a neighborhood that's in transition. We don't see it. It's a very stable residential neighborhood, and this is one of the last sites available, and we think it's an opportunity for intensification, but it still has to meet good planning. And from planning's perspective, we want to bring forward something that does mitigate from those impacts. Something taller would, I don't know how you would build that, because due to the MTO setback of 15 meter or 14 meters from North Service Road, you really start shrinking that lot size for a taller building. So there would be impacts, but I mean, like you said, any developer would have that right to make an application, and staff would have to review it based on our policies and our OP and our zoning as well.
Madam Chairman, just building on Alyssa's comments, also through the real estate disposition process, and I don't want to speak for Ray Kessler, but he has the opportunity to structure the deal such so that the purchasers acknowledge they're buying it with the current zoning and place restrictions or limitations on their ability to make an application for a future rezoning. As you know, Councillor Danko, we do not agree with what the OLT approved at the most recent decision, and nor do we, it would be not our opinion that the OLT is approving what they say is good planning. They seem to be just assessing, are there any impacts? They're looking at a different test or a different lens that they're applying to it. So they're saying if, you know, people aren't coming out to being opposed to it, there's no impact, and therefore they will approve the applications as submitted by the proponents, where we look at it from a good planning lens, which is a much broader lens than the, you know, the developer's interests as it relates to these matters. And I believe Mr. McDonald will be coming forward at a future planning committee, to, I think the next one, February 15th, to speak about these two recent OLT decisions and some of the issues or the challenges that we at the city have in terms of dealing with these OLT matters. Sorry, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor.
Thank you. And I'm really looking forward to that, because I think the OLT is pretty clearly setting different standards than what we are currently applying, whether we agree with those or not. We certainly didn't agree with the West Fifth and Stone Church decision, but it considered property that was 1.6 kilometers away. In this case, the entire other side of the QEW is definitely a neighborhood in transition. And it's on an on-ramp to 400 series highway. So, you know, there seems to be some inconsistencies there. We'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ferguson. I don't see any other, oh, sorry, Councillor Wilson, and then I've got myself down. Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Chair. I am just curious if someone could help me understand from a planning perspective, what do we mean by a stable residential neighborhood? When we're assessing something or looking forward to something, what are the indices of that? Thank you.
Alyssa?
Yep, through the chair to the councillor. So we're looking at a neighborhood that is already developed out, built. So we've got low residential development in the majority in this area. There aren't a lot of vacant lands to redevelop. There aren't. It's not a neighborhood that is sort of in flux, as opposed to if you would take a look at maybe downtown Hamilton or around Barton Street, where we have a lot of vacant buildings, things are changing, schools are closing. So this neighborhood is established. The secondary plan is also highly, because the lands are developed for low density, it's still designated low density residential on these other lands that are already built up. So it's not likely that you're going to see applications come in to redesignate large portions of this area as a medium density in an area that already has existing residential built forms on it. So I think we look at that, and we look at also changing demographics as well of what's happening in a neighborhood. And there's not a lot of change. I mean, there could be potential for certain sites maybe that are formerly commercial that may change over time, but we don't see a lot of land uses that are either vacant, or a lot of applications in the urban Lakeshore area secondary plan that are to change, you know, from a residential to a different, entirely different designation. So it's relatively stable in that sense.
Thank you, Councillor.
Thank you. I'm trying to better understand that. I appreciate the answer, but when you made a comparison between the downtown, for example, and this neighborhood, the reference to instability can be cause of yeah, I'm going to have to give this additional thought, because I think my concern is embedded with the notion of stability. There is a certain, I am wondering whether there is a certain bias of class that we can fulfill, or that we can perpetuate in our approach of stability and what we approve and what we look to. I'm not saying there is. I'm just saying it is something I'll give further thought to from your response. Thank you.
Thank you. And I have myself down. Councillor Ferguson, could you
Go ahead,
please?
Madam Chair.
Thank you.
Chair.
So, Alyssa, thank you very much for the changes that you've made. Also for having that secondary public meeting. My question is about the studies. Has there been studies done on this property thus far? Who's paid for them? And the studies going forward, who will pay for them?
Thanks through the chair to the councillor. Yes, so we currently carried out a functional servicing study by ACOM to ensure that there was adequate services in the area. We have done preliminary high-level traffic review in the area with our transportation planning staff to ensure that the increased density would not adversely impact. But until we actually know what's being developed, the developer would have to submit a traffic impact study as part of their application, because you would have different persons per unit and car counts based on a townhouse compared to an apartment building. As well, there has been some traffic counts that were done in the vicinity of the area, and I would ask maybe the transportation planning speak to those traffic counts and to what those results were. They were done back, I think, in May of 2021. But the remainder of the studies are the archaeological assessment, traffic, noise study, would all be things that would be submitted at a site plan stage. And those are the things that we do ask for based on the particular development that actually is proposed. And because we're permitting a range of uses, those studies would all have different results based on what is actually developed.
Thank you. So the traffic study was done by staff, that was in-house, but we sent out for a consultant to take care of the functioning or the servicing. Do we typically do that? Or did we ask the developer or the owner to do that? Why did the city do
chair, we don't typically, well, we would definitely require that as part of a development application, but because it's we are the city and we're owning the lands. I mean, we've rezoned properties before without doing that because we don't have a specific development proposal. But we did do it in this case because the neighborhood had requested or had concerns that there wasn't going to be enough capacity at the ship pumping station. So we thought to get ahead of that and to appease neighborhood concerns about the servicing, because it was a major one, we had decided to do that. And I think that would all be factored in as part of the purchase and sale agreement, that study has been completed. It probably will need to be updated based on what's proposed, but there's enough capacity for the density. So just updating that based on whoever comes in to develop would be required at site plan.
Okay, thank you. And through you, Chair, and only because you mentioned it, Alyssa, you said something about a specific application. Is there one in the hopper right now? Do we know of one in the that's coming in the hopper? That's really some of the concerns I've heard out there in the community. So is there a specific anything coming forward?
Through the chair, there is nothing that I know of at all. I spoke to Ray last week and asked him if he had any interest, and he had said no, because it's taking so long for this to go through that he's not heard much about interest in purchasing at this time. So there is no development that we're aware of at all, that I'm aware of. I don't know, Ray, if you want to jump in or
potential owner.
No,
okay.
No.
Okay, no, I take that where it's coming from. Meaning I trust what you're saying. What's the other one I was going to do? Sorry, I wrote everything down and then I left the paper sitting at home. You know what? I leave that last question. I'm going to find it and then I'll get back to you. Thank you very much.
Okay, you can take a chair back then.
Thank you, sir.
Councillor Johnson.
Any other questions from anyone before we go to the delegates, please? Seeing none, thank you. Can we, Councillor Pearson, seconded by Councillor Danko, to receive the staff presentation, please? Please vote accordingly. And my thing, Lisa, so it's a yes, receiving. Councillor Danko, can you vote, please? Yep, got it. Okay, thank you. So I'm going back to my roadmap, please. And now we are on to delegates. And I have my first delegate, I believe. Viv Saunders, this must be your day.
Hello again.
I would get a lottery ticket if I were you.
Yeah.
I don't know if this is good luck or not. Go ahead.
I think this is going to take me 7 minutes based on my timing, so I'm going to read it as quick as possible, and I may ask
because it's a public hearing. Because it's a public hearing, I'm going to allow that.
Okay.
This is not a consent item. This is a public hearing.
Okay. So for the record, my name is still Viv Saunders, and I'm here speaking today as a representative of the Lakewood Beach Community Council. While we appreciate the improvements that have come forward in this staff recommendation, I want to speak to 2 topics today. 1, the flaws in the staff report, and 2, the highest and best use of this public land. In regard to the staff report, the planning opinion is based on flawed information. At the OLT, this report will be a key document for reference. There are significant errors in this report that if left unaddressed, the city will unfairly be putting staff member before the tribunal to give testimony that could bring the planning recommendation into question. For example, within the report, there are references to 1400 baseline as being located in a greenfield area adjacent to an arterial road. It is neither. As we all know, the density ranges that conform to our OP policies are dependent on the types of roads abutting the land. North Service Road is not a major, and it's not even a minor arterial road. North Service Road from Fruitland Road all the way over to the city limits is a collector road in our UHOP, Schedule C functional road classifications. So to clarify, Baseline Road fronts a local road, flankage yard is a local road, the rear yard is a collector road. The closest arterial road is separated by the area by the QEW. To provide committee with some comparisons, I went searching for collector local road intersections in some of the other wards that I want you to visualize this proposal on. Okay, in Ward 8, Brucedale Avenue and East 11th is a collector and a local road. In Ward 12, Meadowbrook at Galley Road would be a collector and a local. I believe that rezoning to accommodate a 9-story portion on this corner lot in Ward 10 will set a precedent and be used as evidence to support other collector local road corner lot development applications throughout the city. In reading the staff report, I do not believe it is clear to committee that there are 0 arterial roads in not only the 50-point neighborhood planning district, but there are also no arterial roads in the other 2 planning districts that make up the urban Lakeshore secondary plan. So in summary, and to ensure committee is provided with a clear understanding of the 2,500 square meter area, there are 2 collector roads and everything else is a local road. I'm going to skip over this part. The second area I wanted to speak about today is one I find exciting. Okay, it might take more hands-on work, but there's huge potential for this land to help with the housing crisis. When it comes to planning for housing, I believe we need to ask ourselves whether the goal is to build as many units as possible or whether the goal is to put a roof over as many heads as possible. This neighborhood has an above average number of people housed per dwelling. 50% of the neighborhood is single family homes located way north of this land, and 50% surrounding this land is semis and towns. According to the 2016 census tract data, the number of people per dwelling in this area is 4.166 in this specific neighborhood. Generally, we project 2.4 to 2.7 per townhouse or masonette and 1.6 people per apartment or stacked townhouses. Grids is projecting 2.14 people per housing unit, and this proposal falls short of the Grids 2 target. It is projected to only house 1.94 people per unit. The fact that this area houses 2 additional people per dwelling unit clearly indicates that what has been built in the past should be evaluated and possibly replicated in order to accommodate a greater percent of the projected population growth and ease the burden in other areas. Besides accommodating growth, I also strongly believe that we as a municipality should take every opportunity available to us to try to help curb the rising cost of housing. Hamilton's 10-year housing and homelessness action plan includes various strategies. Strategy number 18 is to advocate for changes to the city and senior government's surplus land policy to make surplus land available for affordable housing development at discounted or no cost. Was the intent of this strategy to obtain and then sell surplus land in order to use the sales profits for affordable housing? Or is the intent to build affordable housing on surplus public lands? Presently, we are in a perfect storm, and the environment is much different than what it was in 2018, 2019, when this surplus public land was deemed suitable to sell to the highest bidder. There are so many great partners the city can choose from in order to provide what I term as attainable housing. The three recent ones I looked at are all good models with varying options of 80% to 125% average market with a mix of tenures. The added bonus of pegging a development to the average is that you also indirectly pay it forward. By introducing capping, the average is slightly lowered, which positively impacts any future affordable housing developments in other areas of the city. You have an opportunity here to pivot from the previous 2018-2019 decisions, and I would respectfully ask that you reconsider what is the best use of the land at 1400 Baseline Road. Thank you for your time, and I'll be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you. I don't see anybody in the chat room right now. Councillor Wilson, I see you. Councillor Farr, were you just, was your hand up, or you just say yes or no?
No, but put me on.
I'll put you on after. Okay, thank you. Councillor Wilson and then Councillor Farr. Go ahead. Go ahead, Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Viv, for being with us for much of today. I don't pretend to understand your frame of reference, so I think it's important. You've raised something. I think the onus is on me to try and make sure I understand it. You talked about the conditions when this was first dealt with, this parcel in 2018, have changed. I think you're hinting to a growing concern with affordability since then and the ways and means in which to try and address it. So your question is our objective to build as many units as possible, or is our objective to build as many units that are within the means of residents to purchase? I don't mean to put words in your mouth.
Go ahead, Bev.
I don't know, frankly, whether this is within the mandate of this committee, but I'm trying to understand the reference you made to the need for us to approach this differently in terms of the land to make it more affordable. So can you give me a little bit more detail on what you meant by that? The second point you were making about the 80 to 125% affordability in different models, please.
Thank you, Viv.
Okay, through the chair, we actually looked at a similar development that was just down the street from this, as well as the one Mountain Secondary School is one, as well as Roxborough, where we've partnered with other providers, housing providers, and the part, and I agree with you, Councillor Wilson, through the chair, that it's not specifically the mandate of this planning committee to make the decision to change the previous council decision on pivoting. However, when we looked at the different ones, and we were looking at this 9-story, very set back now, which is great for the neighbors on the left-hand side, but then there's this big void of land. And even when we looked at the previous one on Barton Street, where you can get townhouses, ground-oriented housing that will house more people on this land. So I believe that is within the mandate of the committee. And then when it gets to council, it's possibly making sure that that actually gets built, because you control the land, you own the land, so you can write, restrictive covenants in the sales agreement if you still want to sell it. or you partner with somebody and do a little bit more hands-on and build the development that's suitable to the committee and suitable to the committee, the public, and is more affordable. I mean, the 9-story is going to house 1 person, 1.4 person per unit. That's a lot of land that is wasted where you can get 4 people per unit. I know it sounds like it's not necessarily increasing density as far as unit count. Increasing density of population is sort of where the focus should be. Does that answer your question? I'm sorry if I kind of went off on all these different areas too.
I think it answers the question. Sorry, thank you, Chair. I think it answers the questions on 2 parts. I think the first part that you're saying and is within the mandate right now, the committee, is you're saying it's almost counterintuitive. You're saying you would think that an apartment building would add to the number of units available, but you're saying a different configuration of units would actually add more units and be more in keeping with, I think you referenced grids in terms of the 2.4. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, through the chair, yes.
Okay.
Thank
And then,
you.
sorry. Thank you, Chair. And through the chair then to Viv, to the delegate, then to the partnering aspect that's different from the configuration of the what we're saying is trying to encourage in terms of the zoning and the parcel makeup. Yes?
Yeah.
Thank you,
Chair,
Viv.
yes. Through the chair, yes.
Okay, thank you
Thank
very
you.
much. Just wanted to clarify that. Thank you.
Thank you. And I have Councillor Farr. Go ahead, Councillor Farr.
Thanks, Madam Chair. I'm just looking for clarity too from the delegate, appreciating the time today on this and the other file, and myself as a proud founding member of the Affordable Housing Site Selection Subcommittee, which is just one of obviously many examples of this and previous councils doing all we can in innovative ways, I might add, to address this national crisis that we're talking about today and just about every day, the housing crisis. So were you, Viv, through you, Chair, looking to understand or amend? Maybe you understand, but you want to amend the mandate of that subcommittee?
Thank you, Viv.
I'm sorry, I don't think I understand the question.
Okay, go ahead, Councillor Farr. Can you reword it so we all understand it?
Sorry.
Fair enough, and I'll spare you having to repeat the 35-minute plug for the Affordable Housing Site Selection Committee. And this might help you, Viv, through you, Chair. I wasn't quite clear near the end of your 7 minutes. You had talked about, what our mandate, I thought you were speaking to, and if you weren't, just say so, what our mandate was with respect to this parcel and as it relates to, what we do and what the function is, where this parcel would have been part of many parcels. The function is of the Affordable Housing Site Selection Subcommittee. So are you saying you don't understand what the function is or the mandate of that committee, or didn't even know about that committee? Through you, Chair.
Okay, Viv.
Yes. Okay. Now I understand. That committee, I believe, last met in 2018 when this land, I'm not sure. I don't think that they've met since then. And it was the previous term of council as well. And so the mandate of that committee, I guess what I'm saying is that the committee itself is made up of different people now that haven't met. They may view this with a different lens because the environment has changed in the last 4 years.
Okay, gotcha.
Councillor?
Gotcha. And for my own committee members, we fulfill the obligation. We could still meet, certainly, and we could also meet to do the very thing that maybe the delegate is suggesting, which is renew the vision, explore a different mandate. But for my own colleagues' edification, the mandate essentially was 2 things: identify our city property that we can divest ourselves of, and use those proceeds or use that property to create affordable housing, whether they're all sorts of machinations. The spectrum is broad, obviously, on that site, or use the profits from the sale of that site that the Affordable Housing Subcommittee, Site Selection Subcommittee identified to throw at another housing project elsewhere. So there was two options: build on the site that we selected, or use the profits from the sale of that site elsewhere. So just in case, there's obviously some members of this committee that may not be aware of the machinations and mandates of past or present subcommittees of council. So thank you for that. I think it was an important point to make. I just wanted clarity for myself also, and I appreciate the time.
Thank you very much. I don't see any other speakers, so it has been moved by Councillor Danko, second by Councillor Wilson, to receive Viv's last presentation for the day. Please. Then I was going to do communications and then go to Tammy, giving Tammy a few minutes to get set up. So that's why we're doing it this way. Sorry. Elsie, Kelsey, and I are trying to synchronize our way here. So we have Councillor Danko and seconded by Councillor Wilson. How's that? This to receive Viv's presentation. And I was remiss not to receive the correspondence. So we'll do that again while Tammy's setting up. So it's been moved by Councillor Farr, seconded. So it's been moved by Councillor Farr, seconded by Councillor Ferguson, that we receive the written submissions. Please vote accordingly. Sorry, I'm beginning before Viv started, so we'll just get that out of the way, and that gives Tammy some time to set up. Everybody vote. Councillor Danko, we're waiting for yours. Got it. There we go, 6-0. Thank you very much for your patience. So Tammy, does your audio work as well?
I believe so. Do you hear me?
It does. Yes. Yes, ma'am, we do. And I believe you do not have a presentation, so you don't need to share. So you can go ahead. And again, this is a public hearing, folks. And my understanding is the Planning Act does not put a time limit on delegations during public hearings. So go ahead, Tammy.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the Planning Committee. My name is Tammy Feltz, and I'm the president of the Wentworth Common Element Condominium Corporation, 479, which is a community adjacent to and east of the subject land. I would like to refer you to page 15 of the staff recommendation, policy B2422B, which states, the proposal is subject to an evaluation that includes matters such as traffic. It is very obvious, based on public feedback, traffic is not only a future concern, but it is an existing issue. Following the neighborhood information presentation, and in response to the public's concerns, staff ordered a traffic count report. In the latter part of May 2021, traffic monitoring equipment was installed in the area of Baseline Road and Lockport Way, with pads on Baseline east of Raintree Drive and a pole sensor on the corner of Red Cedar Crescent and Baseline Road. The pads were in place for less than a week, while the sensor was taken down approximately 24 hours after it was put up. My question is, what happened to the data that was gathered, and why is there nothing on the planning file relating to this brief traffic study? We noticed that the comments from transportation staff in today's report are a duplication of the comments they made back in February 2021. February 2021 is prior to council hitting reset, prior to the neighborhood presentation and public input, and prior to a year's worth of other development approvals. Since the May 2021 traffic count, there was another development approved at Vince Massa Way. Within that planning file, there is a traffic impact study that indicates the QEW interchange at 50 Road is currently at capacity. But more significant is that the Ministry of Transportation staff commented that the interchange will be significantly over capacity with that build. I don't understand why we are adding to a known issue and punting an evaluation of traffic to the site plan stage. We know that density is not allowed to be amended at the site plan stage, and we know that this punting would never be allowed for a non-city applicant. It is my opinion our whole area needs to be restudied because we already know the road network is over capacity. As you can read in Appendix H, pages 13 to 17, from April 2021, an alternative build was proposed. This alternative build, A, would house approximately the same amount of people, B, would better align with the growth plan, C, would provide more property tax revenue, and D, could potentially reduce the amount of vehicle traffic because it would provide more units that are 2 and 3 bedroom family oriented type housing, and that change in the number of units and age mix lowers the overall vehicle count within the development. I would also like to point out at the bottom of page 24 of the staff recommendation, transportation planning staff have indicated that, and I quote, prior to divesting the property, the city shall ensure that baseline has an ROW of 26.213 meters. The city of Hamilton may require an additional ROW on Baseline Road or an easement on the property as it appears to have a catch basin on the property across from Raintree Drive. Oddly, this input from transportation staff does not appear to have been carried forward or considered in the overall staff recommendation. A right-of-way cannot be added at site plan. A right-of-way must be addressed prior to rezoning. As well as it appears this right-of-way would in fact affect the density calculation. When the lot is reduced for the right-of-way, will the new density result in the density of 100 plus units per hectare, which would then be considered a high density instead of what staff were terming a medium density? The present right-of-way for Baseline Road and all of our roads is 20.17 meters. In summary, a traffic count was completed, yet the results have not been provided to you or the public. Provincial staff and the area residents are telling you that the road network is over capacity and public safety is a concern. The official plan states traffic is supposed to be evaluated before this recommended amendment. Lastly, traffic concerns are basically being ignored by punting it forward. None of this, in my humble opinion, is good land use planning that is in the public's best interest. Thank you for the opportunity to share our community's concerns.
Thank you, Tammy. Sorry, I had to unmute myself. I'm looking to see if there's any speakers or questions for Tammy. Oh, thank you very much, Tammy, for coming. And thank you, Viv, for coming as well. Sorry, I didn't do that. I know that you took time out of your busy day to come today. So not seeing any speakers, nobody's asking any questions. I need to receive Tammy's presentation. Oh, wait a minute. We have Councillor Pearson. My apologies, Councillor.
Sorry, I had it in the chat, but it's a question to staff as part of Tammy's presentation. So can staff just please clarify the right of way and the requirement? I'm confused that being told that it can't be, this would be a road allowance. Could staff please just clarify the process?
Just before you do that, are you okay if we receive Tammy's presentation first? You're not going to go back to Tammy to ask questions then? Okay, thank you. So if we can please receive Tammy's presentation, moved by Councillor Pearson, second by Councillor Wilson. Please vote accordingly. And then, sorry, Councillor Pearson, I'll go back to you for your questions. There we go. Okay, sorry, Councillor Pearson, you're on.
That actually allowed, staff heard my question and that, that allowed them the opportunity
so you're on to me.
garner the information. Thank you.
Go ahead.
Through the chair to the
Alyssa?
councillor. Yep, sorry. So the road widening can be taken at the time of the site plan application. We were aware of that widening through this study, and when we did our evaluation of the development potential of the site, you can still accommodate on that site based on that. And there's other factors as well that may, change the number of units. It doesn't mean that a developer will come in and automatically has 90, the permission is for 99 units per hectare, but based on what they're building, the site plan, amenities and servicing and everything like that that's required, they may not get to 99 units per hectare. So yes, the widening can be taken. We're aware of it, and it was factored into when we were doing our analysis of the site.
Great, thank you, Alyssa. I just wanted that clarification because I've had several developments where we've had road widening dedications required after the zoning approvals that have created some issues, but they were there. So thank you for that. Appreciate it. And just as a clarity as well, second question I will ask Alyssa. When we request a road widening, that doesn't necessarily mean the road is widened at that time, but this would be a situation if the developer does build, that they would be required to urbanize and complete all the works, including the widening of the stretch that abuts their development, their property, correct?
Yeah, through the chair to the councillor, that's correct. And it would also be identified what would be required in that widening through their traffic impact study that would be submitted for the application.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, councillor.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments to staff, please? Seeing none, thank you. So we need to close off the public meeting for the final time. This will be our second public meeting. Councillor Pearson, seconded by Councillor Farr, to close off the public meeting, please. Thank you. Been moved by Councillor Pearson, seconded by Councillor Danko. Let's see, that the public submissions were received and considered in approving the application. I think this is backwards. Well, according to Elsie Kelsey, I'm backwards, but I'm pretty sure this is backwards. We're doing the amendment first, and now we're doing the report in its entirety as amended. Councillor Wilson, we're still waiting for you to close the public meeting or to. There we go. We got her. Thank you. Okay, so now we need a mover and a seconder to approve the report recommendations as amended. So moved by Councillor Pearson. May I have a seconder, please? Councillor Farr. All those in favor? And it's 6-0 again. Thank you. And now we're on to 11.1. This is motions, and I am now going to go to Councillor Pearson because she hasn't spoken enough today. Councillor Pearson, I believe you have a motion for the Waterfront Trail. So welcome to the
Yes, I
Maria
do.
Pearson meeting. Go ahead.
It's a Ward 10 meeting today in Stoney Creek. Thanks. Okay, I'm just pulling it up, Madam Chair. My apologies. This is a motion, just getting to it. This is a motion that Russ Powers has asked to be brought forward. Just going to read it off. Sorry, I didn't print it out. My apologies. So it's moved by myself, second by, I'm going to ask Councillor Farr, city ambassadors on the Waterfront Trail. Whereas the use of the Waterfront Trail has become popular with out-of-town cyclists, many of whom are traveling at unsafe speeds, creating daily safety concerns for other trail users, and whereas the use of e-bikes, e-scooters, and other electric-powered devices are increasingly used on the Waterfront Trail, contrary to the city's bylaw, and whereas licensing and bylaw services has previously hired summer students to act as Waterfront Trail ambassadors as part of a pilot program in 2021 to educate the public and enforce city bylaws, and whereas the Waterfront Trail Ambassador Program is considered a success and well received by trail users and beach neighborhood residents, therefore be it resolved that licensing and bylaw services be directed to hire 2 summer students to act as city ambassadors on the Waterfront Trail for the months of May through August 2022 at a cost of approximately $28,740.49, as I said, approximately, to be funded by the Hamilton Beach Reserve Account 108037. If I can speak to it as well, I would appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you. Go ahead. I think we all know this is a legacy from Councillor Collins. Go ahead.
Absolutely, and certainly, and as everyone's aware as well, it does affect Ward 5 because it's in Ward 5, but it does affect major users from Ward 10 that walk that Waterfront Trail that have expressed numerous concerns to me over the summer season of speeding e-bikes and cyclists, etc., cycling groups that unfortunately are not respectful, and it creates this necessity of hiring students to assist in educating and informing and if need be, charging. So I'm very supportive of this, Madam Chair. I'm pleased to put it on the table.
Thank you. And I have Councillor Wilson, then Councillor Ferguson. Councillor Wilson, on the motion, please.
Sorry, I couldn't find my button. I just, I know this is a legacy thing, and I have the same questions every year because I'm still trying to understand it. Out of the reference to out-of-town cyclists, how do we know they're from out of town, and would we make a distinction through the chair to those who are out of town versus those who are local? Thank you.
Thank you. Is there someone here that can speak to that? Oh, there you are. Monica Cirillo is with us today. Monica, I know I just said your name, but could you introduce us for the rest of public consumption, please?
Yes, absolutely. Monica Cirillo, Director of Licensing and Bylaw Services. So through the chair, Councillor Wilson, to answer your question, the information that we report back doesn't make a distinction between out of town or residents that our office communicates with or the students communicate with. But with that being said, we pass on the same information consistently, whether they're from out of town and or residents of Hamilton.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson.
Thank you. Through the chair then to Director Cirillo, if this is an ongoing summer program then, and the students are deemed to be an effective means, are we seeing a rise in warnings or infractions having to be given every year? Through the chair.
Monica?
Through the chair, year to year, we have seen a decrease. So this started when the program originally started, we had about 40 or 45,000 warnings that were given by students. And I believe last year, our stats said about 30,000 warnings were given. So despite there being a decrease, the students are certainly busy when they're on the waterfront, ensuring that the residents and the visitors know what's required.
Thank you, Councillor.
Thank you. And one final question. The reference to other electric powered devices, just for my education, does that include electric scooters, which are used with by people who have some physical challenges?
Thank you, Monica.
Through the chair, no, this would be your e-scooters or your Lime related e-scooters or bicycles to that effect. Nothing to do with an accessibility transportation use.
Thank you, Councillor.
Sorry, and I lied. I do have one final question. Just for the public, could you please describe the where the trail, the definition of it, where it begins and where it would end in terms of the scope of duties?
Thank you, Monica.
Through the chair, I'm not sure I know the beginning or the end point off the cuff here. I know it's the Waterfront Trail. I'm not sure if someone else from planning that has had a longer legacy with it would be able to give the exact location.
I believe it's from the lift bridge all the way to Confederation Park, but anybody else want to correct me on it? I stand to be corrected.
I'm happy to take that one back and provide that circulation, although I saw GM Thorne.
Yes. GM Thorne.
Jason Thorne, General Manager, Planning and Economic Development. Yes, so the question is related to sort of the geographic scope of where the students are. Yes, I could say, having cycled that route many times and seen the students on many occasions, they do kind of position themselves in various points along the trail. They ride along the trail in different spots, so they do cover the entire area.
Thank you. I think the question was, does anybody know the extent of the trail,
yes,
where it starts and stops?
Thanks.
So through the chair, yes, I believe the extent of what they work from is from Confederation Park to the lighthouse.
Thank you. Councillor?
Thank you.
Thank you. So we have Councillor Ferguson, then Councillor Farr. Councillor Ferguson?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chairman. I fully support this. As the Chairman of the Hamilton Conservation Authority is actually hoping to second it because the HCA does manage Confederation Park for the city. And we've seen exponential growth, not only in Confed Park and on the trail, but all our conservation areas. Our annual memberships have doubled in the last 2 years, and we had 1.2 million people attend our conservation areas last year. So it's critical that we do our best to try to make the experience when our guests are there that is comfortable for everyone. And with the onslaught of additional motorized type of vehicles, it's important that we do some enforcement in that area to make it safe and enjoyable for the walkers and seniors and all of the above. And so I fully support this, and I hope it carries. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'm now on to Councillor Farr.
I did this last week, but I'll just commend again, Madam Chair, the previous speaker for the record-breaking and tremendous Hamilton Conservation Authority achievements under his reign as chair and with the great board of directors and staff there. Certainly, this is obviously a problem, but it's one that I believe I may have brought up when Councillor Collins moved it as a pilot. I'm most supportive and glad that as councillor now, Councillor Powers is leading this initiative, but and it maybe hit on what's already been discussed by Councillor Wilson, but the Waterfront Trail, the Ontario Waterfront Trail, is completely covered by this, to my understanding, but that's Lake Ontario. We also have a lot of activity, albeit not Hamilton Conservation Authority land in part or whole, over along the harbor. And it's also very, very active with Waterfront Trust programs and activities and the amazing work there. There's over 1 million visitors a year. A lot of them are not just hanging around having a coffee at Williams. So what through you are the opportunities we might have for these two part-time summer students at 28K from the rescue reserve to get them down there once or twice a week or throughout their shifts? Through you to Monica.
Thank you, Monica.
To include the harbor, what are the opportunities there?
Monica?
The chair, thanks for the question, Councillor Farr. I think that there's definitely an opportunity that we can look on extending the students to go just a little bit farther down there to ensure that we have compliance with our bylaws and ensuring that we're educating people regardless of where they are along that front.
Thank you, Councillor.
So I'm clear. You said to go a little further down there. This would actually be a whole different section, unless somewhere along the last 2 years we put the trail through the industrial area. So I'm talking about, let's say from Pier 5 through 8, or through Pier 5 through the York Bridge, that very popular recreational trail, which has the same issues, which was the catalyst for this pilot in the first place, and now what's before us. So any chance that in there, let's say they're working a full-time shift from May to the end of summer, that they could take a day out of that shift, a day or two out of that shift, and their destination isn't necessarily Van Wagner's. It's going to be, cruising up and down there from time to time in that different section altogether.
Mm-hmm. Monica?
Through the chair, absolutely. It's something that we can consider doing. I think that we could go to that separate location, just to make it clear, the separate location as a new destination. And I think it would be interesting to report back to council and to committee to see what we found when we went to these new locations and whether it's warranted for an extension of the pilot program or what those numbers yield.
Excellent. Thanks so much.
Okay, thank you. And that exhausts the speakers list. And yes, our trails are being used fast and furious, especially with COVID on. People are starting to appreciate their green space. So it has been duly moved and seconded. Councillor Wilson's dog is going to press yes. Go ahead. Including canine vote. Thank you, everybody. That's 5-0 and nuisance party bylaw. So, Councillor Wilson, would you like to introduce your notice of motion, please?
Thank you. I'm just hoping Hazel doesn't lose it. It's not be inappropriate. We're on the lookout for an orange cat. I'll read it. It's I'm going to keep it as a notice of motion, Chair Johnson.
Thank you.
Whereas Section 10 of the Municipal Act 2001 provides that a municipality may pass bylaws respecting economic, social, and environmental well-being of the municipality, health, safety, and well-being of person, the protection of persons and property and structures, including fences and signs. Whereas Section 128 of the Municipal Act 2001 provides that a local municipality may prohibit and regulate with respect to public nuisances, including matters that, in the opinion of council, are or could become or cause public nuisances in the opinion of council under this section, if arrived at in good faith, is not subject to review by any court. Whereas thousands of students participated in a fake homecoming party near McMaster University on Saturday, October the 2nd, 2021, which resulted in personal injuries, damage to property, an overturned vehicle, and garbage and glass strewn throughout 2 neighborhoods. Whereas there have been other situations and incidents in the city of Hamilton, including but not limited to student orientation, St. Patrick's Day celebrations, tailgating parties, and other sports-related celebrations, where parties quickly become uncontrollable, disruptive, and dangerous to the city of Hamilton residents. Whereas as a result of these types of nuisance parties, there is a significant strain put on city emergency services to ensure the safety and well-being of all residents. Whereas the number of other Ontario municipalities have implemented a nuisance party bylaw that gives law enforcement personnel a mechanism to control and disperse people when an event has become a public nuisance. Whereas municipal law enforcement and Hamilton Police Service have reported that they would benefit from additional enforcement options beyond those available under existing city bylaw and provincial statutes. Whereas a nuisance party bylaw would provide municipal law enforcement and Hamilton Police Service additional tools to address the negative impacts on neighborhoods of behaviors associated with large social impacts. Therefore, be it resolved that licensing and bylaw services be requested to consult with Hamilton Police Service and other community stakeholders to identify best practices from other Ontario municipalities and report back in the second quarter of 2022 next steps for the development and the implementation of a nuisance party bylaw in the city of Hamilton. Thank you.
Thank you. And that's your introduction. No vote is required. I am now going to Councillor Pearson. What a surprise. Again,
Hello
Councillor
again.
Pearson. Yeah.
Hi. Yeah, my goodness, I'm not in the chair.
Your battery might be going low now. 12.2, the amendment to the removal of snow and ice bylaw respecting the definition of clearing. Could you please present your notice of motion?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm going to present this as a notice motion, and respectfully, if my colleagues support, I will move it up to a motion. Because
then let's just do that now.
Yeah, so it's before everyone. I'm sure everyone's read it, so I'd like to move it up, moved by myself, seconded by yourself, Councillor Brenda Johnson.
Thank you. Okay. It's been duly moved and seconded to waive the rules. Considering the season, there is a time sensitive here. Well, yes. Hazel's watching Wilson stuff, so she's probably a little late. Thank you. So I'm going to go back now to Councillor Pearson to move the motion, and I believe after you finish speaking to it, I'm going to go to Councillor Farr for speakers list.
But I will ask Monica Cirillo to provide some input as well for my colleagues. So it's moved by myself, second by Councillor Brenda Johnson, that bylaw 03296 being a bylaw to provide for the removal of snow and ice from roofs and sidewalks, whereas Section 130 of the Municipal Act, Chapter 25 is S02001 provides that a municipality may regulate matters related to the health, safety, and well-being of the inhabitants of the municipality. Whereas the Council for the City of Hamilton enacted the removal of snow and ice from roofs and sidewalks bylaw number 03296 to provide for the removal of snow and ice from roofs and sidewalks abutting the highways in front of or alongside or at the rear of any occupied or unoccupied lot or vacant lot. Whereas the removal of snow and ice from roofs and sidewalks bylaw number 03296 currently does not provide for a specific definition of clearing snow and ice, making it inconsistent and unclear for property owners on their responsibility and what constitutes compliance. And whereas contractors working on behalf of the City of Hamilton have a specific definition of clearing snow and ice in their contract. Therefore, be it resolved that licensing and bylaw services staff be directed to report to the Planning Committee with recommended changes to amend bylaw number 03296, being a bylaw for the removal of snow and ice from roofs and sidewalks bylaw, to include a definition for clearing snow and ice consistent with the contractor contract in the City of Hamilton. And if I can just turn to Monica, I believe this was an issue Councillor Clark came upon Councillor Clark. I'm bringing it forward on his behalf with regard to some inconsistency in language, and Monica may wish to just clarify for our colleagues. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Monica?
Through the chair, thank you for the question and the opportunity to add that clarity. So right now our bylaw does not define what clearing is. So when residents are out and they're clearing their sidewalks, they are not doing so to the full width of the sidewalks or removing the snow right down to the sidewalk itself. While our contractors have an obligation in our agreement with them to clear the full width and to clear the full amount off of the sidewalk. So for consistency, we are recommending, and staff will bring back a definition into our snow and ice bylaw that will make that clear for officers, the community, and residents all alike.
Thank you, Monica. Councillor Pearson, you still have the floor.
Sorry, thank you. No, I just appreciated the clarification. So for my colleagues, as I said, this is an issue Councillor Clark was brought to his attention. And certainly I agree that we need to clean this up. And thank you for your seconding, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Farr, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to thank Councillor Pearson on this All Pearson Planning and Economic Development Committee with a finish to the meeting as exciting as the Rams affair on Sunday. But I was going to give her full credit, but she mentioned that this is a product of Clark. Either way, prudent stuff, especially with another dump coming and all of the concerns we've had. Clarity is really going to be helpful here for everyone who maybe is missing a few steps in our snow clearing. So the assist to Pearson on the Clark product here, and yeah, thank you. I'm sure we're all very supportive.
Thank you. Okay, and Councillor Danko, go ahead. You're up next, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a follow-up question through you. Would this include consideration of fire hydrants? I was always taught that it was part of the requirement was to clear the fire hydrant in front of your house, but I'm not sure if that's actually part of the requirements for snow clearing. Is there consideration as part of this for that?
We have Monica on already. Let's see. Monica, does that need to be cleared as well, or is it already stated clearly?
Through the chair, the fire hydrant is not mentioned when it comes to clearing around this definition, but that's something that staff could look back at.
Thank you. Councillor Danko, do you have a friendly amendment there?
Just request that we also can just consider a requirement for clearing fire hydrants as part of the review. I think that would be, I think most people do it anyway, but you know, along the same lines as if you're not clearing your sidewalk to the full width, you know, if a fire hydrant is buried with a snowbank, then it's not really helping anybody if there's a fire and the fire department has to dig it out or find it, or, you know,
correct
complications. Thank you.
Councillor Pearson, I'm coming back to you for that amendment to include fire hydrants. I'm fine with it as a seconder. I'm coming to you as the mover.
Okay. I'm fine with that. Sure.
Thank you. Councillor Ferguson. Oh, sorry. Councillor Danko, you still have the floor? No? Okay. Thank you. Nope. Councillor Ferguson.
Yeah, I'm glad Councillor Danko brought up the fire hydrant issue, because I know in the past when you have these big, heavy winters with lots of snow, we depend on the residents because they know where they are, like fire hydrants is catch basins. Because if the catch basin is covered, the water can't escape and we get a lot of flooding. I know Public Works does their best to get around, and but the residents know where they are, and typically, and I know we talked about making a requirement that residents do clear open up at least where the catch basin is to allow water to escape. So to Monica, is that something that also that we should consider?
Monica?
Through the chair, it's definitely a consideration that councillor or committee may want to consider, because there is that silence of it in the bylaw. To my knowledge, I'm not sure what the best practices across other municipalities, whether it's included or whether it's not. But if it's something that council or committee wants to consider, we would be happy to take it back and include that in our bylaw.
Yeah, I'm not saying do it because I'm not sure. I just suggest that you contact Public Works or the more maintenance people to find out if this is a requirement that a citizen is to do, so that they don't get flooded. And I'm curious to know what they're saying. Do our fire department go around and open up hydrants? I'm not sure. So it'd be great to get those two things cleared up. But most responsible citizens I see in our community are doing both, and to avoid, because you can get between catch basin, especially if there's a low spot in the road, the water can get very deep if a catch basin is plugged and then start to cause some serious problems. So I appreciate, Madam Chair, that Monica is going to check that out and report back to us, please.
Okay, thank you. So I believe it has been, sorry, Councillor Pearson, you wish to speak
Yeah.
again.
Well, to Councillor Ferguson's suggestion, I have no problem with that suggestion, but are we adding this to the motion that it comes back as a bylaw? Or are we directing staff on that item to investigate?
I was just gonna, I was just
I
gonna
want
get that
clarification
clarified.
because here's the dilemma, Madam Chair, and we all know. I mean, the plows come along and they plow and bank the snow right now. I have residents that have 4 and 5 foot banks along the frontage of their curbs. That would make it impossible for them to dig out. The only way would be to call Public Works and have them come with a bobcat to open up the catch basin. So I just want to be sure that we're not putting a huge burden on residents that have no control of what happens at the roadway. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Ferguson, you wanted to respond to that before?
Yeah, that's exactly what I didn't want embedded in the bylaw yet. There's no question there's a windrow created by the wing of the plow when it goes down, but typically they try to push it back behind the curve. And but some snow could fall forward and still plug the catch basin. That's why we'd like to get a staff report back on that. And on is there a responsibility of the homeowner to make sure that catch basins are cleared if they get missed by Public Works? I know when I was chair of Public Works, I had this conversation with the GM, and they would run around with loaders trying to find them. But residents know exactly where they are because they're in front of their homes. And but just food for thought for everyone, just to do the right thing to make sure that we don't have an issue of flooding in our communities when all the snow starts to melt.
Thank you. So I'm not hearing an amendment here, but I am hearing that staff are taking that into consideration when they come back to this committee.
Yeah, when they report back to us.
Thank you. So it has been duly moved and seconded. Please vote accordingly. No other speaker. Okay, folks, we're coming around the corner now. We have no confidential, and before we finish off this Maria Pearson meeting, I'm going to go to our GM of planning, Jason Thorne. I believe that you are going to ask us to move a motion to release some documents and any other updates, please.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I do have 2 items for committee this morning. In a moment, I'm going to actually go over to Steve Robichaud, who's going to give a bit of an overview for committee of some recent organizational changes that took place in his division and introduce, I guess, new faces, familiar faces and new roles to committee with respect to some of the changes that have recently happened in his area. But before I do that, I did want to speak to committee about the matter that Councillor Partridge referred to earlier. And it's not anything that requires a motion, but our practice has been that for larger policy initiatives, that we seek committee's concurrence or identify if there's any committee concerns if we release those materials early to the public, earlier than what is identified in the procedural bylaw. So at the end of March, we're looking to bring forward the Waterdown secondary plan, as well as some associated plans with that. It is a fairly lengthy document. It's been a couple of years in the making in terms of some of the public consultation that has been happening in the Waterdown area. And so if committee has no concerns, what our approach would be is similar to what we've done with other major secondary planning initiatives. As soon as the materials are ready, we would post them to the city's website. They would get posted to the committee agenda page so the public has as much time as possible to review them. I can't say at this moment exactly what that date would be. So I'd just be looking for committee to see if there's any committee concerns with us just doing that as soon as the materials are ready.
So let's deal with that topic first. Are there any concerns or questions about releasing those documents for the Waterdown secondary plan earlier than usual? I don't see
if you need a motion, Madam Chair, I'm really happy to move it.
I asked that right from the very beginning, and GM Thorns indicated that we don't need to do a motion. He just wanted to get consent, that everybody was comfortable with it, and there was no concerns. So thank you. And GM Thorn, if you want to introduce now Senior Director Robichaud.
I will turn things over to Chief Planner Steve Robichaud. So council may recall that back in I guess it was early fall, I had a staff report in front of council around some organizational changes that we were looking to put in place across the department, mostly affecting building and the planning division. council approved those changes, I said that they would be taking effect once we had gone through a recruitment process to fill all of the positions. So Steve and his team have done a lot of hard work to put that in place, as has the building division. And I do have to acknowledge the efforts there of Dio Ortiz and Ed Vanderwint and Emily Coe. And I'll let Steve acknowledge the staff in planning division and give a bit of an overview of what those changes are. Thank you.
Go ahead. Thank you.
Thank
Director
you, Jason.
Robichaud?
So I just wanted to touch on a couple of things. So as Jason indicated, early last year, Council approved a realignment and reorganization within PED and in particular in planning, and an investment in planning in terms of creating some new positions. So we've spent the fall during a recruitment process to fill the vacancies. Just to highlight some of the changes, I can start with sustainable communities. Previously, this was our community planning section, and we made the decision to merge the community planning section with the policy planning group into one section. That was a result of a retirement of one of the managers, and rebrand into a sustainable communities group. So this is under Christine Newbold, who is the manager, and they are responsible for both doing the long range strategic planning, such as grids, our MCR, the OP review process, as well as the development of neighborhood and community plans, such as secondary plans. Currently, they're working on the Waterdown secondary plan, which will be coming to committee in March of this year. The other change related to zoning, the decision was made to move the zoning review function from building, which was led by Emily Coe, into planning. And then we put all of the zoning components into one section. So the group that's responsible for writing the new zoning bylaw, administering the zoning bylaw, which was previously in building, as well as the committee of adjustment, and that is now in the zoning and committee of adjustment section. And the manager of that group is Shannon Mackay. So if you have any questions regarding zoning, she would be the go-to person to assist in responding to those issues. So not only through the preparation of the zoning and administration, then using the committee of adjustment sort of as a quality control, quality assurance, and monitoring trends and changes in the zoning. The other major change related to the development approvals function. Previously, all development approvals were under Anita Fayback as the manager of development planning, heritage, and urban design. In response to workload pressures, feedback from stakeholders, the heritage community, and the increasing importance of urban design considerations, the decision was made to realign those roles into two distinct groups. So Anita Fayback will be continuing as the manager of development planning, where she will be responsible for those applications under the Planning Act that ultimately get presented to Planning Committee. So official plan amendments, rezoning, draft plans of subdivision, condominiums, part lot control, those aspects. We still have the three teams, urban, suburban, and rural, plus the business facilitation group reporting to Anita. As a result of Shannon moving from the SPM of the urban team to the manager of zoning, Anita is currently in the process of recruiting for a new SPM to lead the urban team. The other major change was to bring the heritage and urban design functions into one group and recruit for a manager for that. So Ken Coit is the successful applicant, and he is rejoining planning. When I first was the manager of development planning, Ken was working in the urban design role, and then he went over to tourism and culture. Now he has come back to lead the heritage and urban design section. So in addition to the urban designers, matters of cultural heritage, we have the three cultural heritage planners plus natural heritage are all underneath Ken, as well as our GIS section, who are responsible for doing our spatial analysis, the development of the 3D model and the 3D modeling considerations, as well as some of the research work that the GIS people do, such as some of those maps that Jason presented last week in terms of building permit activity or development activity. So that is all under Ken. So now we have the management team in place. We do have a couple of key vacancies. I do want to announce that today was actually Alyssa Mahood's last presentation to Planning Committee. So I wanted to thank Alyssa for her great work on 1400 Baseline Road. As many as you know, I can just stop sharing this. Alyssa was also involved in the Fruitland Winona secondary plan, the award-winning nationally recognized downtown secondary plan. She's been heavily involved in the setting sail in dealing with the negotiations and the resolution of the appeals to the setting sail secondary plan, and most recently on the Block 16 urban design study and moving forward with that application, which will be coming for a statutory planning committee to the February 15th meeting. In addition, as the SPM working in the community planning section, she was also overseeing work on the Waterdown secondary plan, which will be coming on March 22nd. And she was involved in the Centennial neighborhood secondary plan that was adopted by council a couple of years ago. So I just wanted to thank Alyssa and acknowledge her for all her hard work. She's been a great member of the team. She's been very creative, innovative, hardworking, and an excellent individual in dealing with public consultation. And I just want to wish her well in her future endeavors as she starts a new position on Monday with a competing municipality. So thank you very much, Alyssa. And I will be sending out the organizational chart updates.
Oh, thank
We've had a few
God.
staffing changes over the last couple of weeks, so it's always a bit of a work in progress. So I have to, Sarah, my admin, is often very busy updating it, but I will be forwarding it to all the members of council and your admins with the contact list so that if there's any questions or concerns, it'll make it easier if you're not sure where to go. Obviously, my office is always here to assist. And we will be rolling out some other initiatives to improve our ability to respond to the needs of both members of council and our customers in terms of responding to inquiries and making other information available. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Steve. I was going to ask you to send that chart around, please. Thank you very much for a little bit of a brief discussion of everything you've just said. That would be really helpful. And Alyssa, all the best to you. This counselor is desperately going to miss you. We went through a lot together with Scooby. Anyways, so we have a speakers list. So Councillor Pearson, was this regarding the updates or something else? Because you were in early. Okay. Sorry, both? Okay.
Both.
Do you want to just start? Yeah, go ahead.
Well, first, I also want to extend my thanks and gratitude to Alyssa. She's been a phenomenal part of our team in planning, and she's done a phenomenal job. And I hope that, Steve, you have her on speed dial so that we can keep her in case we run into I see the head nodding yes, in case we have some issues, because she intimately, I'm sure she's been eating, sleeping, and drinking all of our planning stuff for the last number of years, and she's got it all up here. And the best support person that we could have on any issues that may come forward on developments and planning reviews that she's participated in. So, Alyssa, I wish you the very, very best. You know, it's our loss. It's our absolute loss, and we know that. So
thank you so much.
And hopefully, Steve, the door is always open if she wants to come back, right?
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you.
I can pick her up on my way to work if she wants.
That's right. Oh, there's an opportunity there. I have a question though too, and I'm not sure if it's through Jason Thorne or Steve Robichaud. So some time ago, I think it's over a year, 2 years ago, there was direction given to bring forward a bylaw for Airbnbs. I've seen nothing yet, and I know the season will be coming upon us. Not only did I have issues with Airbnbs last year, I also had issues with, I think you call it Swimify, where people actually have pool parties where they have independent residents come in, they rent the citizens' pool in their backyard. It's not their neighborhood, and it affects the neighborhood surrounding this activity because it's technically a commercial activity. So, Jason, do you have an idea of when this is going to be coming forward?
Jason?
Yes, through the chair.
Thorne.
Very soon. It is a bit delayed from when we originally wanted to bring it forward. It has taken a bit more time to develop the proposed approach. The way we'll be bringing it forward is first, Monica's team will be bringing forward sort of the structure of the bylaw and the bylaw approach that we would be recommending. I anticipate then to make it implementable, there may be some housekeeping zoning changes that may be required. Subject to the sort of the report being finalized, what we'd likely be doing is bringing forward the bylaw for council's consideration, get any feedback on the bylaw from council and the public, and then preparing some zoning bylaw amendments and bringing both forward at the same time to a second meeting for actual adoption. That's the approach we're looking at. Like I said, still subject to change a little bit once we finalize the reports. But yes, Councillor, we are very close to bringing that forward. It has just taken us a little bit more time than anticipated. And our bylaw enforcement team has also had some other priorities they've had to deal with over the past couple of months that has taken a lot of their attention.
Very well understood, and I don't appreciate everything that's been going on, because we're waiting for that report to come forward too, as far as bylaws involvement in number of calls and everything else going on with COVID and all the other good stuff. So I just want to be sure, because I think I just mentioned to, and Monica has it Swimify, that we include that. If she wants clarification, by all means, just give me a call. but I'm sure they've received complaints about that. Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Jason.
Thank you, everyone. I'm not seeing anybody else on the speakers list. Nobody's waving frantically. Oh, Councillor Farr. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. I typed it out, but I didn't hit send. Just real quick, Ken, Christine, Shannon, and the versatile and longtime Anita. Just what a great team, and especially just being parochial when it comes to quick action and accessibility to counselors. All four are phenomenal. In terms of Alyssa Mahood, I heard our director say that she's off to a competing municipality. There is no competition. So I'm curious as to where it is. I'm sure she'll be happy, but I agree with all of you. An absolute travesty, a huge, huge loss to our planning and economic development department. And I hope that makes it harder for her today and this week as she leaves the corporation. I hope that
I think she's got her jet boots on.
to her eyes. Hi there, Alyssa, and great work. It's really a pleasure working with you. And as I'll close with what you and others have did over 7 or 8 years with the downtown Hamilton secondary plan. You heard Steve refer to it, and well-deserved. You got a national award for that. It is by far our most progressive and inclusive plan, and it is in large part to your unbelievable countless hours covering off everything we wanted to cover off that we brought up over the course of many years of meetings and so forth. So through you, I think Alyssa is just dying to say thanks to us all in a very
I think so.
way.
You're
and
right.
maybe give her a second here because I don't
floor is yours.
Yeah,
Okay,
thank you through the chair, I suppose. It's been really great working here. It was a really hard decision to leave after 20 years. And I know that my team, I've said to them, please keep me posted and invite me to your public meetings as well. And it doesn't mean it's forever. But it was an opportunity that was closer to where I lived. So I think it was a driving force, and maybe I'll steal some secrets from other places and come back and to Hamilton one day in the future. It's been really great working with everybody, especially council. I have had some really great relationships with a lot of you with the project, especially Council Farr, of course. Just hey, and Councillor Johnson and Pearson, all of you guys. But no, I really appreciate it. It was really hard. The people at Hamilton are number one. So that was the worst part about leaving all the friends and the staff, because it's really a great place to work. But it just sort of fit a little bit better for my work-life balance and location-wise. But that doesn't mean it's forever. Just for now. And Steve left as well once, and so did Anita. So I'm just following in their footsteps.
And driving force is no pun intended. Okay.
Yeah, that's right. Thank you.
Thank you, Alyssa. You are going to be missed. Okay, thank you, everyone. And we just need a mover and a seconder to receive Mr. Thorne's update. Councillor Ferguson, seconded by Councillor Farr. All those in favor, please vote accordingly. And my thumb is up because sorry, folks. Councillor Wilson, it even matches my shirt. There, see. And now for adjournment, please don't leave until after the vote. Councillor Danko and Councillor Wilson, all those in favor. Sorry, Councillor Pearson, you've had too much to do today.
Great job, Madam Chair.
Everybody enjoy the day. I was